I think Christine's coming, so. Okay. Here she is. What, no design?
Towel.
That would probably be in my house if I want to cook. I have to be home for that.
Okay, we'll get started. Are we, we're recording? All right. Okay, good evening, everyone. Welcome back. Hope everyone had a good summer. This is Lori Charlton. It's September 16th, 2025. Welcome to the quarterly meeting of the Board of Finance. Call the meeting to order. Please rise, Mr. Mottola, would you lead us?
Sure. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. To the members of the public who dialed in or joined us via Zoom tonight, you are currently muted and will not be heard by board members, and there will be no live public comment until called for during the meeting. Generally, we welcome public comment on certain voting items, which tonight includes agenda items 6 and 7. If you're on Zoom, you can indicate now or at any time prior to public comment via the chat function that you'd like to be heard. And please plan to limit your comments to no more than 3 minutes. Members of the public are encouraged to send their comments and questions in writing to the board at any time. You could do so via the town website by navigating to the Board of Finance page and clicking on Contact the Board. Again, this is a quarterly meeting, the primary purpose of which is to review the most recent quarter-end financial information for the town. And for this meeting, the most recent quarter is Q4, which is also the town's fiscal year ended June 30th, 2025. Just a note for the public, we have another meeting scheduled next Thursday, September 25th, which is the annual capital planning workshop, at which time we will review the town's proposed 10-year capital plan. And we'll do that together with representatives from the Board of Selectmen and RTM. All right, so with that, we'll move to item 3 to review the current status of the town's pension and OPEB funds. The backup for this item is in the posted meeting documents starting on page 1. It's entitled BlackRock Quarterly Investment Report. And I want to welcome the Vice Chair of the Pension Board, Board. Thank you for being here.
Thank you. Ken Brockfield's extensive regrets he has the family commitment he needed to attend to. So I guess I'll just get into it. We're going to be showing it on the screen, or because everybody has a hard copy.
Yeah, we'll just use our printed copy.
Okay. Starting with slide 2, we see the high level sizes of the respective portfolios. The good news is that the pension plan is approaching $500 million.
I'm sorry to interrupt you. When you say slide 2, are you talking about page number 2
Yes.
for this page, right? I just want to make sure we're on.
Right, yeah.
Because I don't see it up on the screen.
Yeah, no, we're
We're all on
right.
the same page. I appreciate it. And thanks for being here and filling in. I appreciate that. Good to see you.
See you. So, slide 2. So slide 2, we have the pension plan approaching $500 million, which is good news. And OPEB is a little bit over $100 million. Again, good news. Both have been propelled by the equity markets. There's a bit more public equity in the OPEB plan than the pension plan. They were small. Previous presentations. There's a strange return on cash figure there because of a very small denominator. You see it's $185,000 and large cash flows in and out that is interest income. So that 34% is obviously a silly number, but you'll see that the asset value rounds to 0. It's a very small number relative to the portfolio size. Moving to slide 4. This is a recurring theme, but it's important. The equity markets have been very strong. So the portfolio has appreciated 493 million, 481 million. You see there on the top right-hand corner. And then shifting to the left, you see the pies with various asset classes. And just mention it at a high level. U.S. equities about 31%, non-U.S. equities about 20%, so totaling over 50%. Then you have private equity at 10.7. So if you add that all up, that's equity of almost 70%. So it's a fairly aggressive portfolio, and that aggressiveness is translated into good returns. So I like to, for what's worth, look at the longer or medium term results, and they've been, if you look at the 3-year rather, and the 5-year returns, they're each about 9%, which is quite a bit in excess of 6.9%. Looking at slide 5, because there are a lot of characters on this page, the actual investments are unshaded and the categories are shaded. So for example, the BlackRock Russell 3000 index fund is unshaded. That's because we're actually in that. So going with that, just picking that out more or less at random, you can see that the italicized very small number, numerically very small number, 0.01, that's 1 basis point for the 3-month return is actually the what's called the alpha, or the active return relative to the benchmark. So it's an index fund and they're supposed to track the index benchmark. So 1 basis point difference is obviously very small and to be expected. That's success in that world. So that's a lot of detail. The start date on the right refers to BlackRock's picking up the data feed. So you'll see that when it inherits information from Vanguard and predecessors, that the information isn't quite as clean and automated.
Can I ask you a question about that?
Yeah,
That's disappointing that we don't get historical numbers.
it's coming. It is coming.
Okay,
It's just rougher and higher level.
okay. So if we were ever to leave Vanguard, BlackRock, are they going to give us during their entire term what happened to our next investment advisor?
I would hope, but I mean, BlackRock is famous for the quality of the systems. But I don't recall any, categorical promise to port over the information in a particular format. It's beyond my area of expertise, to be honest. But it's a great question. I could imagine moving again. So it's something that actually I'll make a note of it.
Yeah, I guess, and then the other question is, does your board think that we should be keeping track of that, even if we have to keep track of it ourselves?
That would be, I mean, we are getting the reports. I think would ask a lot of IT.
Okay.
It's beyond my
Sure.
skill set.
I
But
understand. Okay.
I think I think your first question, I would actually like to act on, which is to say, if we needed to port over the data from BlackRock to the new BlackRock, how would that work?
Yeah.
Yeah, because with Vanguard, it wasn't seamless. I mean,
Yeah.
just to go on for just a second, obviously, both entities are OCIOs, they're outsourced CIOs, so they're themselves managing flows from different companies. So it's a pretty complicated thing. And BlackRock happens to be one of the best in that result. When it comes to data analytics, I mean, that's what they're most famous for.
That's a quick question.
Yes.
I'm sorry, what? You mentioned something about shaded and not shaded. What did you mean by that?
The shaded are the categories as opposed to the investments, so categories of investments.
Okay.
And then the unshaded would be the actual investments. If you do the math, I mean, I could just show you an example. US equities is about 150 million.
Yep.
And if you look below that, the 2 rows down, you see 110 million and 39 million. Add those up, that's the 150 million. In just one final point, in some categories, there's a category and only one investment. So it looks like just the same thing twice, but that's why.
Thanks.
Does the allocation guidance or the policy that we give to BlackRock, do we break out equities between US and international?
Yes.
We do. Okay.
Yeah, that's coming. So going to slide 6. This is largely the alts portfolio, but the very first row, shaded row, that way, again, shows a strange cash return. Just let that go. I've already explained that, but I can explain it again. It's a cash flow over a small denominator thing. And Jim, to your question about historical returns at a high level, slide 7 gets into that. So equity, by that they mean public equity, is broken out, fixed income alts between real estate and private. And the information you'll see is very high level. They don't compare to the benchmarks. They don't do any of the more granular analysis they do for the actual money they manage for us. I think that's, again, the data porting issue that you've identified.
Thank you for pointing that out.
No problem. If you look at slide 8, I'll just go through 3 concepts that are pretty familiar to the, frequently used within the alts world that aren't familiar outside the alt world, I don't think. So you have DPI, which is distributions to paid-in capital. So what have we received from what we've actually put in? Total value to paid-in capital, which is the value of the distributions plus, fancy word, the corpus, whatever's in the actual account. And then IR, which is has a time value of money concept built into it, which the other 2 don't, by the way. That goes into the cash flows and relative to your investment. Problem with IRR is that if you have positive and negative, I think Chair Charlton, I think you mentioned this last time with memory serves, if you have reversing cash flows, the math gets very messy and you end up with nonsensical results. So my point is there are 3 different metrics here, each of which has its positives and negatives. And normally analysts look at them together and they're all pointing the same way. They're happy, they're good. If they're pointing a bad way, they're unhappy. And if they're mixed, they dig in deeper. So just, that's probably a refresher. I suspect Kevin's gone through that in the past, but just as a refresher, those are the 3 figures there. The numbers actually, I review.
Can I'm sure I've asked this before, so I apologize, but the first 3, the vintage year is in all cases more than 10 years old. The first one's 15 years old. And they're close, but the second 2 still don't have all the capital called. Are we out of the window where they're not going to call capital anymore on those?
My understanding is that they're going to continue to.
They're going to continue, they're not winding down. What is do they have these are closed funds, right? So they have an end life or?
Well, the issue is they invest in assets. In the case of private equity, actual companies,
Right,
and they have to do something with them.
right,
And they're given some window for dispositions
right.
and they,
But I mean, 10 years is usually pretty typical, right? Where they want to liquidate a fund.
yeah, so some of these are long in the tooth.
Yeah, that's why I'm surprised they'd still be calling capital and making investments at this point. It just seems odd. That second one, a 2013 fund, and it's 88%. Well, maybe it's done. I don't know. I'm just. And I know it's not uncommon for them to extend the life of the fund if there's a few pieces they can't get rid of, but. Okay, older, okay.
Making a note of that, actually, I'm curious myself. I'll
Yeah.
look that up. Okay. The question. Slide 9, you see the asset allocations, and I know I was asked a moment ago about ranges for policy targets. And you can see the lavender diamond is in the middle of a range. This actually the size of the range is going to be, we're doing a strategic asset allocation review. We're talking to BlackRock about doing it. And one of the issues we're talking about is the size of the range. It's pretty broad right now, and it can be broad for certain asset classes and narrower. The lavender's in the middle, and you can see whether it's within policy, the column all the way to the right. And you can see in each case, the asset class is within policy. In fact, often on top of it, right in the middle.
I think you told us this last time, but they rebalance monthly, doesn't it?
I don't think I said that because I don't know. I would,
Someone asked, and I thought that was the answer we
it
got.
might have been Ken who knows the answer to that question. I don't. I think I would assume it's.
Thought it was
continuous.
quarterly, but
Okay.
but I think we heard back it was monthly, but I was.
That's a great question. I don't know the answer to that. It's funny, investments is such a big world and, you can know something in investments really well. And then like the operational side, I never touched. So that's fun. Great. Point, super quick. All right, so slide 11, OPEB, and you can see the progression again, just repetition over $100. Good progress. Pie to the left, you can see that the equities chunk is 65, over 70%. It's again an aggressive position. If you look at the results, as I said, I like to look at medium and longer term results. You see very strong portfolio returns. 12%. Looking at the detail, now there's a big problem on slide 12. Nothing that affects our happiness with the portfolio. BlackRock and or Bloomberg. The alpha figures are wrong on the face of it. But I called them this morning for clarification, and I just don't have time to make the changes, but I can talk about them. So the alpha figures, the active return figures in fixed income are wrong. So the negative 156 basis points, which would be a big lag, is supported by 0.07, so 7 basis points and 18 basis points. Just imply it doesn't work mathematically. So those figures are wrong, but the numbers on the investments themselves are correct. So there's a very small, relatively small alpha, positive alpha on the fixed income investments. I can send the corrected sheet, this corrected sheet, to Jen, and she can circulate it. The results are good. The reporting it. And BlackRock threw Bloomberg under the bus for it. We got slide 13. Yeah, we have the alts. Paramount in the proxy account. All right, so to Jim's question about historical returns, now we have the OPEB historical returns, and they go back as far as they go back. Private equity goes back 3 years, and returns are great. And we're in an equity bull market, so that's to be expected. Not predicted, but our portfolio is leveraged.
But this private equity return here is all unrealized at this point, right?
Well, if you look at that, that was my earlier point about DPI and TVPI. Some of it has been distributed. You can get that from the DPI. That's distributions to paid-in capital.
Which, where am I looking?
Page 15.
Sorry. I'll look at myself. Yes, I was going back to the pension section. Now this is okay, right? So DPI is low. So the 3 Harbor Vest investments there have very low DPI. The TVPI, which is again including appraised or estimated valuations, appears to be very good. Two issues. One is it's estimated. 2 is it doesn't consider time value of money. So in both respects, it's a incomplete metric, but they all are. And then CIR looks great. There's a way to go on this. And frankly, if the equity markets continue the way they have been going, things should well be great. And if they go the other way, then things won't be great. Private equity and public equity obviously aren't completely distinct asset classes. Simple out quite a bit. Then the OPEB asset allocation is on slide 15. Again, the lavender diamond is in the middle of the range where it's supposed to be. And then if you look at the column to the right within policy, the answer is yes. And you can see the size of the ranges. Again, that'll be under review. So just to expand on that. So the minimum for equities, and by that they mean public equities, is 75%. The maximum is 85%, and the target's at 80%, and we're at 80%. So in theory, we could drift quite a bit from the target and still be within policy guidelines. But that's a question we've asked BlackRock, what's best practice on asset classes? Should we have them specific to the asset class? Should we just narrow them? Should we leave them where they are? I haven't heard any discussion. That's just a question.
But on the private equity, the bulk of the, probably 2/3 of this has not been called yet, right? So when that capital is called, we would liquidate just the equities proportionally. Is that how we do it?
Well, it's subject to the call of the manager. So they call the capital for the agreement.
Right, but the cash that we have to come up with the cash to fund that capital call,
Right.
right? So we just liquidate the
I
rest of
think
the portfolio proportionally?
Right. Well, that keeping within the guidelines. So we have proxy to address the guidelines, and we have other asset classes. So as equities appreciate, obviously that puts pressure on that particular cap. And then we sell the equities and then redistribute the cash. So I think it's not driven by proportionality. It's driven by whatever the cap or the minimum.
Right, staying
Capital
within the
floor, right.
target. Okay,
Right.
yeah, because we obviously don't have cash to do it.
Cash is at, I think it rounds to zero in almost all cases. And I don't think, I'm sorry not to remember, I don't think you want to talk about market outlook with me, right?
I mean, does anyone have, I don't know if, I assume everyone read the report. Does
Self-explanatory.
anyone have questions?
Not about this, but I have questions about the stuff we reviewed.
I mean, do you have any, since this is as of June, anything to add, in terms of experience the last couple months or?
I mean, the markets have been good. I mean, the calendar year today is up 13%. The 1 year is up 19%. We're at pretty much an all-time high on the S&P.
Yep.
So I think this is pretty predictable. Given that we're levered to the equity markets as much as we are, I think should be very surprising.
Anyone have questions about the market outlook?
Well,
Jim?
kind of brings me to my question about, what do you think of where we are with fixed incomes? The returns don't seem to be there. And even this market outlook on page 19 says remain underweight, lower quality fixed income.
Right, and we just had a back order for the 20 and the 10-year treasury strips.
Yeah.
I'm only one person, of course.
Yeah, I just didn't know whether.
Yeah, no,
There's a discussion about this on your board
I think the discussion, well, we have some discussion, some individuals prefer just having I'm going to simplify, but a 60-40 or 70-30 portfolio, but that would include fixed income, obviously. Some discussion of indexing, that would be just an indexing type of solution versus what we're doing currently. I don't think I've ever heard anybody say just get rid of fixed income. I have heard questions of real estate portfolio. I think that the thinking is that diversifying asset classes and, if there's pressure in a bad equity market to sell and we sell at the wrong time and all of us are gone, the J-RIP turns over, new people are in and nobody has the philosophy that I would have to just stay the course. People might, and apparently this happened in recent history. I wasn't around when it happened, but apparently around the Adolf days, some prudent decisions were made. And perhaps we missed some of the increases in the S&P.
Should we look at maybe slide 53 to speak to Mr. Walsh's? That's BlackRock's capital market assumptions.
Yeah, so these are volatilities. These aren't what's called beta, which is so there's covariance and there's volatility. So the covariance would be diminished by having different asset classes. The volatility would be per asset class, how much it moves, regardless of whether it moves in sync with other asset classes. The volatility would be something you certainly would look at.
Oh, and then they have the expected return too, right? They're
Yeah, expected return as well. Yep. So the question is, are you buying a reduced portfolio volatility by investing in real estate and income as well as equities? And I think a reasonable person could say yes. Another person could say, well, we're a long dated pension plan and maybe everybody is going to manage rationally, never get emotional when things go down. And we're always going to be staying the course. And maybe historically that has proven to be the best approach. I don't think that's insane, but people are human, and is there an argument to be made that a future J. River Board of Finance might be more inclined to jettison the portfolio when things are rough in this big updraft in the equity market?
the idea is that you guys are trying to manage this thing relative to, expected future liabilities, right, for these pensions. So really, as long as we're hitting those targets, we don't, in other words, need to far exceed those targets. We just need to think that we can get there reasonably based on this allocation.
Right. The offset, and that's true, and the offset to that is to the extent the portfolio underperforms, we just perform enough, but we've missed out on a lot. The taxpayers are paying for that. So you don't want to miss out on opportunity. So on one hand, it's, you don't want to, you want to, it's nice to cover your liabilities comfortably. On the other hand, you might think, okay, well, I think beyond that, since the town's on the hook anyway, the town should be relatively aggressive, not bashful anyway, try to minimize the burden on taxpayers. I think that's the argument. That makes sense.
Oh, yeah, sure. I mean, I think it's reasonably situated as it is, but
It's a pretty levered portfolio.
fair question, yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I'm not talking about jettisoning, fixing. I guess my question is, what percentage, 30%?
I think it depends on the portfolio. It's changed over time, but yes, 70, 30, above.
About 30%.
I meant jettisoning the equity portfolio, by the way. I meant jettisoning, if you're referring to my comment about jettisoning.
Oh,
I'm saying that a future
okay.
board might jettison equities
Oh, okay.
and
Yeah,
miss an opportunity because things were rock at.
yeah, like you said, we probably missed an opportunity with the Madoff thing.
Yeah.
To have made back some of our losses.
Right.
During that period of time, because we were probably too conservative. To play this over the long haul, that's what we hear every year, every quarter.
I've heard people say that, and it's persuasive.
And that's what we are told. And we actually
Seems to be
balance things out over great gains. We balance them out over 5 years. There's all sorts of things built into this. So I guess the question is there any thought process by your board to try to make more returns for the taxpayer? Say, maybe we go to 25%, since the returns just haven't been for 30%.
Well, we're redoing the SAA, the strategic asset allocation.
Yep.
We're talking to BlackRock about that now.
Okay.
So that could be like I said, I'm only one person.
Yeah.
But
Can we get either a presentation from you or Ken or both of you, maybe in our next quarter after you've gone through this process?
I think it's inevitable. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I'm sure Ken has every expectation of presenting to you on that
That's
topic. It's
great.
a huge topic.
Okay.
And
I'd like
I
to
can't
talk
imagine, it's unimaginable he would.
I'd like to hear it, where you can talk about it. Great.
I'd be happy if he wants the support, sidekick or something.
I always like tactic. Thank you.
Any other questions? Did you have anything else you wanted to highlight for us?
Thank you. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Great
Great
Appreciate
job
you.
as usual. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we're going to move to item 4 to review the BOE fiscal year 25 year-end financial position. The backup for this item is posted online beginning on page 56. Board members have a printed copy. First, I want to welcome Terry Devaney. Thank you. Who is the new Courtney, in case anyone hasn't met Terry yet. You won't be called the new Courtney for long. It'll just be Terry. But thank you for being here, Mr. Peterson, Chair of the Board of Ed. Thank you for the presentation. I'll turn it over to you.
Well, good evening, and thank you for the opportunity to present 24-25 year financial report. When I stepped into the role on May 20th, since then, my work is centered around reviewing projections, actual expenditures, balancing the budget, and confirming that our financial statements are fully reconciled and audited. This year, the district faced several financial pressures, including special education tuition, contracted services, rising costs for substitute teachers, utilities, and tuition reimbursement. Through targeted savings and careful management of existing resources, we were able to meet these challenges without reducing programs or services. A key factor in our year-end results was the wage and benefit reserve. This reserve was established as a safeguard in case additional staffing or benefit costs were required. As part of my detailed year-end review and reconciliation of all accounts, this reserve was carefully analyzed. While the funds were ultimately not needed for staffing, we were able to strategically reallocate them to district priorities such as maintenance projects and essential equipment replacements for our schools. These investments ensure critical district needs are met and help maintain the longevity of facilities of our equipment. Additional savings were realized from lower than anticipated health insurance elections, which further helped offset overall expenditures and stabilize the budget. Strategic transfers approved by the Board of Education in May, combined with disciplined expenditure management, allowed the district to close the year with a zero balance, all accounts fully reconciled, all funds accounted for and audit ready. As detailed in the provided report, final transfers were made from reserves and other categories to support district priorities such as operating expenses, maintenance, utilities, and essential equipment. These transfers represented less than half of 1% of the district's overall appropriation, underscoring careful and deliberate financial management. In summary, despite financial pressures and rising costs, Fairfield Public Schools closed 24-25 fiscal year stable funding. The budget was successfully balanced, contingency funds were strategically reinvested in priorities, and all accounts are fully reconciled.
Thank you. Questions from the board? The Walsh.
Thank you. Nice to meet you as well.
Welcome. So it came down and you netted it out to 0.00. What weren't you able to do, wanted to do for the board? What things did you want to accomplish? Or were you able to hit all of your capital spending, all of your chicken spends, all of your purchases? That's kind of I'm trying to figure out what you're gonna need now in the future, what we're gonna expect to hear from you all. Like, we weren't able to do that by the end of fiscal year 25. Because sometimes we hear that or after the fact, and it's always surprises me that I forgot that we didn't get that you
Unless I'm mistaken, I don't think that there was anything that was, that we wanted to do that went unfunded. Because of the transfers that we were able to make, wage and benefit reserve, the, advantage that we had in insurance mix. Correct me if I'm wrong, but
Yeah.
I don't want to step over you, but I mean, like, those things help balance out, obviously, the negatives, the sub costs and the special ed costs, which are always kind of a moving target, as you know, through the year. I think that we were able to, I think we were fortunate this year that we had enough positives to offset the negatives. I will even say like there were a couple of things that we were able to do at the end that were necessary that Terry was able to find ways to do, such as the automotive lift at Ludlow, which was a safety issue and came up, and we were able to make sure that it was taken care of.
That list was not part of your capital.
No, but as often happens, it
Yeah.
was something that emerged.
Of course.
Yeah.
There was an issue with the repair and the company came back and said it just was a safety issue and it really needed to be replaced. It could no longer be
Understood.
repaired.
I want to give credit to Terry where credit is due, and it's like it was an emergency issue that needed to be fixed, and we were able to find the space in the budget. Yeah.
But purchases, everything was purchased that you wanted, that you budgeted to purchase.
I believe so.
Yes.
Yeah.
Technology, all technology purchases purchased.
I believe so.
Yeah, please. There's always needs. But I
Right, yeah,
think,
nothing that we did not go without.
Sure.
that would impact instructional services.
Okay. Something we're gonna hear about in the future that we didn't get in 25, fiscal year 25, that we now need in a future year.
I don't believe so. We're entering into a new, the very early stages of the next budget season. We always talk about what we learned about, from the last year in forming the year budget, but I don't believe in the case of this past year, like there was something that we, in terms of a purchase, that we needed that we could not get.
And it's one of the most. But repairs to town. All the repairs planned for get done, was anything skipped or pushed off to future years. Because as Jeff, you're well aware, sorry, I'm not sure how long you've been in the district, whether you're brand new or whether you had another
Fairly new.
position. Okay.
Yeah.
That thing where people, get things are being done 3 times over and then building had to come down a little bit. So I have like a concern, so I just wanted, I want you to make you feel good about it and that all the maintenance for our town building was accomplished in fiscal year 25 that was supposed.
Well, I think there's always a waterfall item list of things that have to be done and these priorities that have to be. So I would say it's never 100% accomplished. There's always things that have to be done. Really issues that have to be done.
We got an update at our August 26th meeting from Angelos Papajors, our operations director. I can point you to that. I could send you his list of summer maintenance projects, but I take away from that, and I don't want to speak for him, was that we were very successful in meeting a lot of our maintenance targets over the summer, and over the course of the past year. Talking about capital projects is a little different. We will be here, in 8 days talking about our capital needs on the long-term basis. I don't believe that there was anything that did not get done in terms of maintenance. It was a major issue that we are pushing to a future year. I mean, you're aware, as things like the Ward Field lights, which were a surprise $750,000 disaster that we needed to address.
And when we started coming down, rusting out.
One of them came down and we had the other ones
Yeah.
inspected and they said it's
Oh,
go.
bad.
So, we of course, on things that are emergent, that we see that we can inspect, we will act. And I really have great faith in Angeles in terms of staying on top of, kaleidoscope of facilities and properties that various maintenance needs. But I can get you that report that he sent us on the August 26th. That may be more helpful.
That'd be helpful. And I'd like it highlighted on what things anticipated to be done with the fiscal year 25 budget that were not accomplished in fiscal year 20.
Yeah, I don't think there are any of those things, but as you're aware, and as Ms. Devaney said earlier, we have a copious list of maintenance projects, and we traditionally tier them, tier 1, tier 2, tier 3. We're never going to get to all of those tiers. But we are gonna prioritize from year to year about what we can hit this year and move other things up. You know, a tier 2 that we didn't get to this year, maybe a tier 1 next year. So there are a lot of things that are on our radar that may not have gotten done past year, but we are aware of them and maybe planning for them. But again, I don't wanna stray too far into Angelus's territory.
But aren't there a list of things you anticipate that you're going to do?
Yes.
That we give you.
Yes.
I'd like to know whether each one of those is done. If there wasn't one done with enough funds or time, or the weather wasn't right to do it, or you had a hard time getting the thing, whatever, like, you know, you couldn't get those poles for some reason. You know, I want to know what has been now, we couldn't get to it this year, we're gonna try to get it to whatever, and I want to know the reason why.
Understood. I'll reach out to Angelus and to Mike Castano and.
Yeah, just the way we're all like being honest going forward, because right now I'm hearing we hit 0, everything seems to be great, so I'm thinking that everything that was in that budget book and all of your priorities and stuff like that were hit. But if it's not, then I don't want to hear about them. I'd rather know about them now.
I understand.
Okay? That's
But
all.
isn't it, just to follow up on your question, Jim, it sounds from this like it's the opposite, like you did additional, not only did you do what you budgeted for, but you put up another $900,000.
Right.
Right, so you did more than you had budgeted for because you were able to use the excess wage reserve and.
Correct.
Right, okay.
But, you know, but the automotive lift was, how expensive was that? That was a big project.
26,000
I thought it was more.
with the lift and footings, that was about 20.
That was an emergency, right?
Yes.
Oh, I just want to make sure there's not, that, yes, we did extra stuff, but we didn't do some other things that we told
No,
you.
I
we were gonna
understand.
do.
And you're right. Again, in terms of the types of projects that we do, there could be a large thing that we accomplish. I don't believe there was anything that was like that we're pushing off to a future year.
Good.
That's not my sense at all.
And that's great. I just think it's better to be open about it right now, so that, I think it's better for you guys, actually, because we can't say, wait a minute, I thought that was supposed to be done last year. So. And that's-
Ms.
that's-
Ruggiero?
that's-
Welcome, Terry. In line with what you were saying, is there anything you brought forward to get to 0 that might take pressure off of this year's budget?
Just,
Right, and we were talking about that in the Chromebook cards, we talked about in the. That was not a huge.
I think 30.
Yeah.
34,000. Nothing else.
So just to be clear on your, the things you list here on your memo. That shows additional things you were able to do with your money. These things weren't really. Aren't you just to do some more things? On surplus that you had, is that a fair statement?
Well, I think that's always true.
And I know it,
Yeah.
just want to make sure.
I know you know.
But I'm not criticizing you about.
Yes, no, if we have an opportunity to do something, I mean, you know, if you want to think about, you know, this, the level of lift, it would have needed to be lift at some point in time. We did it in 1525. We continue to do that. So absolutely, to the degree that things can be, especially maintenance projects that are always coming right back around.
I mean, I would assume some of this stuff might have been in next year's budget, like this thing's timing system. Assume that's something you were gonna. Was gonna.
I can't remember where that was it was on our athletics. One. I'm not sure what year it was.
Sure. Well, all right, thank you.
Other questions? Ms. Vitale?
Very welcome. Were any of the items that were purchased with the year-end spend items that were reduced from the Board of Ed's budget fiscal year 26? Because I know the Board of Ed did make some reductions prior to moving it forward to the town.
That was before my time, but I believe that it's
I think that's
reduced.
true. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I
Mr.
don't want
Peterson
to,
can
want to.
speak to that.
Well,
Better than me.
I wish
Before-
Mr. Papa
it was
George was here to
before
speak
my
to it, but
time.
I believe that's true. I'm not sure of the quantity of that. I'd have to actually go back to, that may have been talked about in our August 26th meeting, but I don't recall.
I apologize for not watching your meeting.
Even you. It's other stuff.
And I have to ask, Mr. Peterson, can you guess what my question is going to be?
Bring it up.
Was there any, given that you were running a shortfall for special ed for, a good part of the year, and I know the challenges that could bring to the school district during the year, that things get put on hold, money doesn't get spent, and you're waiting to the end of the year. Was there any discussion of putting any of this funding in a non-lapsing account going into this school year? Just so you have that funding available, if there's a shortfall for special ed, another emergency maintenance repair. Now that the statutes change and the Board of Ed has the opportunity to
Yeah,
make.
I can only say from a board standpoint that was not something that we discussed at our table. But it was also something that emerged at a time near the end of the year that I think it was not. It was an end of the year issue that was not brought before the board. We didn't know about it at the time. I totally get your point. And yes, the law has changed and gives us the perfect unilateral authority to establish an account like that. But we did not have a board discussion just on a timing basis. I think if we had known earlier in the year, if we had known March, April, I would also prefer those discussions, even though we have that authority to involve the town, just to be completely transparent about that. Yeah, it was the timing did not work in favor of a non-lapsing account from a board perspective. I don't know.
Wait, I agree.
Don't you have to, don't you have to know you're gonna have a surplus before you have that discussion?
Well, that's-
You're not
again,
gonna know
that's
that
the
in
thing.
March or April, right?
Yeah, if we had, and to Ms. Vitale's credit, like during the budget season, she asked multiple times if that was the thing that we could consider. And we didn't have that insight into what our year-end balance was going to be at that point. I was feeling very cautious personally. And I'm glad things turned out the way they did, especially things tend to, on utilities tend to, in the spring, like we suddenly, if it's warm, we have a benefit from utilities. That's a thing that we could lead into. I think that if there's a lesson for next year, maybe is to think about areas that we may be able to be maybe a little less conservative earlier in the year and have a better idea of where we're going to land.
For the mechanics, if you wanted to at the year end, if you knew you had this surplus, you could have taken some of it and just put it in a non-lapsing account instead of spending it down.
Yes, but I think that would have been a board decision. I don't know that it would be appropriate
Right.
for.
I mean, of course it would be,
Yeah.
just curious if the board had that discussion,
It was just.
knowing the volatility of many items with staffing and special ed going into the school and maintenance.
I understand exactly where you're coming from, but that may be a discussion that we have next spring.
And just for the lift, did you look at Ludlow, on wards to make sure that there wasn't an issue with that one?
Yes, they had been.
Thank you.
Maybe.
Mr. Walsh?
On the second page of the report, you see your transfers. On the 2 column where you were short, it says fund maintenance, the third one down, fund shortfall in utility. This is tune of $289,711. So you were short in the utilities area. And I have a question about that, because I'm looking at page 2, and maybe I'm just not getting all of your utility. But I see that commercial gas and heat was actually a savings of $408,000. Yeah, presumably the warmer winter than you anticipated. Water was approximately $51,000 for the good. The electric was $220,451.24 for the bad. And then I see this number, fee for utility company. What is that? And then why is that why you were over? The actual utilities were actually lower by a little bit more than, let's see, 408, 458, a little bit more than $220,000. But I also see this fee for utility contract number that was not budgeted for under the adjusted budget. So can you explain
So
that?
that's the fee for the synergistics contract.
Can you explain what the synergistics contract is? Because if that's a contract going forward, we need to know about it.
And Terry, just in, I'm not sure, can you maybe speak up? I
Oh,
don't know
sure,
if you're, the mic is picking up.
So the synergistics contract is a utility company that comes in and they help you reduce your overall usage. That doesn't account for the actual cost of the utility because the rates could go up, but the usage goes down. And that in fact happened this year. Our usage overall went down about 12%. But because the rates went up, that's why the electric was over budget. But Synergistics comes in and they analyze your usage and they propose cost saving measures to help reduce bill.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but we were budgeting this in the 25-26 budget.
Yes,
It's included in that. So
It's
it's not
already
something, it's already in the
So-
current year's
So
budget.
despite the savings on just the heat and water, the electric was way over. By $220,000. Despite the savings, the contract, still $533,892. So I didn't think it was that warm. I mean, it's a pretty warm winter last year. So I'm trying to figure out why you guys didn't have more savings, not the other way around. Seemed to cost you. Like just the super warm, like start of the year and end of the year, so your air conditioning costs skyrocketed.
I think the rates really speak to how much the utilities went up.
Okay.
Because like I said, the overall usage went down with the Synergistics contract,
Okay.
but the rates went up.
Okay.
Did you, to pick up on that, did you do an analysis to see whether that contract paid for itself? I mean, I don't know what a 12% reduction, sounds like a lot, but 12% reduction in usage, sort of separating out the rate and the usage. Did this,
Please, Mr. Papa George.
Jim, to your point, yeah, I mean, electric was, you had that $220,000 delta, but what might it have been if we hadn't reduced use? We don't know that from what.
I understand.
Yeah.
And I do understand the electric costs have gone up, so if Mr. Papager is gonna be here, by something, or something else, there to talk to us about that in the future sometime.
Yeah.
So this is a whole new concept, this synergy, whatever.
Sure.
That
Synergistics.
synergistic. So it's a whole different thing. So it would be nice to know whether we're benefiting from the contract or feel like we are.
Yeah, I mean, if it's really a winner, I mean, maybe they should look at the town too. Yeah, I don't know. But it would be good to.
A lot of money to spend to save money.
Yeah.
It's,
Holy
yeah,
cow.
I can say that in my previous district, we also used Synergistics and there was considerable, like millions of dollars of savings over the amount of the contract.
That was
So
absolutely
I
the case
do-
that was made during budget season for us. So yes.
Okay.
well, I know I was always freezing in this room, so I don't know if they. Conditioning or
They
what.
That's really me. When I get here, I AC up, so we stay awake, basically.
Thanks, John.
You're welcome.
Yeah. No,
I hope I didn't
but
bore you.
it would be nice to see the analysis, so I'll make a note, and maybe we can ask Angelus in the future.
Thank you.
Any other questions from the board?
I just want to know whether you guys know whether if we have more retirements or less now than started the year, you should know how many passed in the last couple of years for your budget.
My recollection is that we were right on target in our retirements for last year. We do ask employees, correct me here if I'm wrong, if they're going to retire, to let us know by November for this coming year. So again, as we start working on our budget for the 26-27 year, trying to get that data as early as possible. If that is an important variable.
Just in one or two sentences, we're spent on transportation. We still having problems finding drivers to run for that work. Yeah.
We have a new contract that we executed over the summer. In terms of bus drivers, I believe it's still pretty tight. But we are not, to my knowledge, having issues with our district's buses running so far this year.
Okay, thank you.
Quickly, one question.
Mr. McDowell?
What bargaining agreements do you have up this year? to negotiate? Are we caught up?
We're doing custodians this year. And special ed trainers.
That's better than
Custodians. is a medium
administrators.
size.
Okay. Good, thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, it just, in terms of other staffing, are we fully staffed? I've been reading about challenges that other districts have had in terms of teaching staff. Are we good? Are we?
Not sure. I would have to check with Sacred.
Yeah, I know, I know with the substitutes and,
My belief is that I think we were short just a couple of positions at the start of the year, and I think that those have now been filled. I don't think that we are short on staffing, but yeah, that would be a.
good to hear. Ms. Leclerc?
How about enrollment? We on target with enrollment?
The answer, I think for this current year is yes. I think that there was one classroom that was reduced at one school. I'd have to go back to the enrollment, but we're not far off from what our projection was. I don't wanna guess too much, but we're not far.
Well, maybe that would be a good topic, maybe both of those things, just in terms of staffing, enrollment, and maybe this synergistic analysis, maybe the next quarterly review. And I'm not even sure, will we be here, Jeff? I'm not sure.
Oh, not me. It's somebody else's problem.
I don't know, November, that might be our last meeting, but if it is, I'll make a note. Maybe we can have that incorporated as part of the package. Those analyses for the fiscal 26 year. Okay. All right. Anyone else? All right, well, thank you again.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Looks like you've gotten up to speed quickly. So
I'll try.
I've been very pleased.
It's a little challenging, but
I bet.
thank you.
Okay, all right, so we're going to move to item 5, which is to review the town's fiscal year 25 year-end financial position. So the backup for this item, a little confusing. We, it's in the posted meeting documents beginning on page 64 for the public, but there were a couple pages that got revised. And so the revised document is actually with the supplemental materials. The board does have an updated copy of printed documents in front of you. But if you're looking online, make sure you go to the supplemental materials. And
On the safe side, we have a copy that he's gonna hand out.
yeah, we have these, I had this.
Some of those didn't print out, the landscape. So we should just discard. Just use the one that sending out.
Thank you. So. Okay, so we do have the, yeah,
Supplemental.
yes. Okay. It's different than the supplemental online. It shouldn't be. Okay. All right, so let's so we'll dive into this and we'll start with the preliminary financial summary page. Tom, are you going to walk us through this?
Yes, so as Laura said, this is a preliminary report. We've had some organizational changes. As you know, I'm sure our controller left early July. Those of us who are relatively new, but I think we're in relatively good shape in terms of the numbers that are here. In terms of the things that we know are going to change, we have not completed the accrual for salaries and PTO. In terms of the accrual itself, it's a relatively large number, probably $2.5 million. But what you're going to be looking at is the difference of the delta between last year's accrual, the current year accrual. So that I would guess is going to be in the range of, a couple $100,000. We still will have some additional transfers to make, not large numbers, I think. Reappropriations, not large numbers. And we have not done the transfers, but that, net impact in terms of the budget. That's just transferring monies from one department to the other. In terms of the report, it summarizes revenues and expenses compared to budget. We also have a discussion of comparison of regular salaries versus budget by department. And there is a report on the internal service fund and a chart that shows the ratio of fund balance to expenses. And of course, that's all very preliminary right now. In terms of performance year to date, right now we're looking at favorable variance or transfer to fund balance of $7.6 million in round numbers. But again, that is a preliminary number. The variance is being driven primarily by revenue, where it's 4.9 million. And there's a 2.7 million variance in expenses. That's up quite a bit from the third quarter, but again, it's being driven by favorable numbers primarily in revenue and to a lesser degree in expenses. On the revenue side, on page 3, really the big driver is tax revenue. We have a $2.7 million variance there, favorable, and it's due to the increase in the collection rate versus the budget. It's about 20 basis points over budget, higher than budget, and it's up from last year. So the budget, I think, was 9.15. The actual rate was 99.5. But that is, the principal variance in terms of the tax revenue. We also continue to do well in terms of licenses and permits, primarily in construction projects. And, that's being driven by a couple of things. One is, as we discussed in the previous quarter, there have been additional projects, but there's also been, I would say, an increase in the way that Pat is managing the process. In the past, I think folks have come in and had projects and they've sort of given him a value for the project. And he's now gone out and asked them to document, the value in terms of the labor cost and the project cost. So that is also driving the revenue growth here. As we move into this year, we're continuing to see that very strong growth in that area. In terms of sort of high level, parks and recs did very well, primarily in the golf area, as we have discussed previously. The driving range was a big factor of the growth there. So in terms of overall revenue growth, those are the main drivers. If there are other questions on revenue before we go into expenses on the other areas, I'll pause. Yes.
Mr. Walsh.
So the fourth quarter for current and prior year tax levy and interest, we have 0 for 3 quarters in a row. And then $2.5 million. All of a sudden, no one was able to estimate any number for 3 quarters straight. And then all of a sudden, $2.5 million pops up. That doesn't seem to be consistent the way we would like to see these quarterly numbers. Like, you guys should be able to be, or the department should be able to estimate what these variances are. I mean, and in previous years, and I wish Caitlin was here, we could talk about that, because I've never seen 3 zeros in a row. And then boom, $2.5 million over.
Yeah, but I would think, honestly, I think that we were too conservative as we've gone through the year on that. I think the term I would use internally is, maybe there was a little bit of sandbagging just to be conservative. So I would agree that, we need to take a closer look at that as we go forward. And we did say that, the collection rates were strong as we've gone through the year. probably should have drilled down a bit more to quantify that.
Why is this the first year where we've had zeros there, like 3 years, 3 quarters in a row? Did the administration tell you to do this?
No, I mean, this is, I can't speak to last year. I can speak to, like I said, I was here the second quarter and the past 2 quarters. And I think, again, as I've gone through discussions, and I really didn't look at it relative to the previous quarter. I looked at it in terms of the discussions I was having with respect to the current date. And again, you know, what I was being told is that we're strong in collections. And frankly, I was surprised that the magnitude of is as large as it is, but you know, at least it's a favorable outcome.
I mean, we don't want to be sandbagged.
I agree. And that's why I use the term. I agree.
We want accurate information.
And
We get this on a quarter by quarter basis. I always thought we were always getting the most accurate information we had on that date when you were coming before us, the finance department.
yeah, and I gave you the information that I felt was accurate. And you know, this is something I've learned from as I've gone through the process with the tax department.
Can I just follow up on that, Jim?
Yeah.
So, and I don't remember, quite frankly. I would assume that for Q3, Caitlin was still around. She would have given us.
Yeah, but I don't know. I don't blame any. I'm
not saying blame anybody. I just don't remember what she said back then. Maybe we have to go look at the tape, as they say, so.
Yeah, I thought it
Sorry
was
about-
odd that we were getting zeros too, but.
What I do recall was the discussion is, you know, how do we go from 0 to 781 in the second quarter? So there have been those kinds of discussions. But there was we haven't had a specific discussion about the tax collection. And again, you know, if I go back and think about the discussions I had, I don't know that I would have asked a different question. I just, you know, it looked like we were doing well, and I was a little surprised that the favorable number is as large as it is. But again,
Yeah, I guess if the finance department knows that we're doing well, that the collection rate is doing well, we should know you're doing well. That's the whole point of having.
yeah,
That's
again,
the whole point of having a quarterly.
I agree with you. And again, I gave you, you know, I have learned a little bit from this, and I gave you what I thought was the best information available. You know, I've tried to be transparent about it. So it's something that we will learn from as we go forward.
Okay. Anybody else on this? Because I got a question on the next one.
Yeah, I just have a follow-up on that too. Like, I completely agree with you, Jim. Like, I would have thought we're paying our property taxes quarterly. You know, now we've gone to annual on the auto, but the big piece of it's property taxes.
And that's early in the year, so that we
And-
know, that's in the bank.
Right, and that's, I would have thought that there'd be actual journal entries, ledger entries, actual deposits that we could compare to what we budgeted. And I understand your process includes some judgment and forecast and such, but with something like the collection of property taxes where there's actual collections, I would have thought there'd be more rigor around the process so that we wouldn't have errors.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, so can I just make a suggestion? And we may have done this, we probably did, I don't remember, but in the materials or commentaries, like when we have Q1 coming up, it would be helpful to just specify what the collection rate is. And if you don't want to use that collection rate in your estimate because listen, I would be conservative too. If I were you, I wouldn't want to be out there assuming if things were running maybe a little bit ahead, that was going to continue. A lot of things could happen. But to the extent we have a collection rate that's higher than budget, at least in the commentary, it would be good to quantify that so we kind of know what it is quarter by quarter. And the other thing I did notice this year, it looks like we had very little in the way of the prior year collections. Oh, no, actually, I take that back. So it was slightly over budget. It was 167,000 over budget. So that wasn't it. I know we had maybe it was 2 years ago, we had a number of tax sales that kind of drove that up. But when we have things like that, I think that's the kind of metrics that would be helpful in the commentary to the report.
Okay.
Maybe we could just do that going forward and that would take away that.
Sure.
Mr. Matola?
This is you may not know this answer, and maybe some board members may or may not know it. Is this the highest collection rate we've ever had?
I think so.
So
That's something.
Yes.
we've got more mortgages in town. I think that's the thing. You know,
Don't
so
forget this next year's budget.
Well, I think that that's why we brought it up during the last budget cycle to adjust it.
Thank you.
You see your quarter one there? All zeros?
Yes.
Yes, to be quite honest with you, and I told Caitlin it was last year, that there was nothing there. I understand not a lot has happened. I understand that some revenues are seasonal. We've had that presentation for as long as I've been here. But to have all zeros, that should have never even come out. I mean, so I'm just telling you, I'm not anticipating seeing that at the first quarter of this year. You have some information. I know it's a short period of time. I know it gets more accurate every single quarter. Except this year, for some reason, this year, it wasn't really accurate quarter by quarter because third quarter shows we're gonna have a $2 million surplus. And quarter four shows we're gonna have a $7.5 million surplus. So it's off by $5 million. So that didn't work out this year. So I'm expecting quarter one to have real numbers. That presentation, when it was all zeros, just looked like plain laziness. Like no one wanted to do the calculation at all. So let's just give them all zeros. We don't know.
I can't speak to that. I don't know.
Well, I'm just saying, I'm anticipating, I know we didn't really have, like, you're a real CFO. And, you know, I'm just telling you what we're anticipating.
Yeah, I agree.
All zeros are gonna be kind of
I
unacceptable.
hear you.
They're
We're
not
on.
gonna be all zeros.
just, we should be, just, nobody get mad at Tom if the number of the surpluses decline. And I do want to reemphasize, I know, if we want realistic, that could go both ways. I do want to just reemphasize what you said, like this 7.5 million,
Preliminary.
that's not the final number. So you still have to do a payroll accrual,
Right.
PTO, and maybe a few other things. We're still in the middle of the audit. Yeah, I don't know if he's even come back yet for a year
Has not.
in earnest. So don't anybody put that question.
It's not gonna, it's gonna be a smaller number.
Next October, these numbers are gonna be final, right? Because we need to do our year-end transfers and all that good stuff. Okay. Ms. Ruggiero,
Did you say next October? Or-
this October, yeah, next month.
Couple questions. First of all, for the first quarter for taxes, you're gonna know the number because of the auto tax we jacked up this year. So, and it's one-time payment, so we'll have all that. When you say that, what do you mean by the accrual for salaries and PTO isn't in here? Why?
The question, when you do your audit, you have folks who have vacation time that they haven't earned. So, for instance, if an individual has 2 weeks of vacation that they're carrying over, you have to make an accrual for that. And that applies to all individuals. They have comp time. You've got to.
No, I understand how that works. Why is it in, what, you know that
Well,
information?
it's,
How do you not have the number?
it's a fairly complex, it's a fairly difficult thing to do. For instance, last year, what the auditor said is the information was kind of a guesstimate because it's not something that they were able to get out of Munis. So it takes a fair amount of work to do. We're trying to get information from Paycom now. So, and we have someone working on that. So it's just a process that you've got to go through. For all of.
I think to Tom's point, we lost our controller a month ago, or more than a month, July. We have not filled that position. Tom, and maybe this is a good time. I understand we've made an offer to someone?
Yeah, we made an offer, so we have one joining us, so Monday, the 22nd.
Okay, but we've been 2 months without Caitlin during the year-end close, and I guess you guys have gotten a good, it's been baptism by fire, probably
Yeah.
trying to figure this out yourself. So we're behind.
Yeah, so yeah, we are at least two weeks behind.
Okay, so as far as the calculation, I'm very familiar with it. I guess you just didn't have time to get it in here because it shouldn't be complicated. I mean, just taking someone's comp.
It takes a fair amount of time. It takes time to do.
But, what is the additional transfers? What is that component that's not in here? You said the accrual for salary and PTO.
The transfers, yeah, once we've, completed all of the work in terms of the accounting,
Mhm.
you gotta look at each department versus budget. Some are gonna be over, some are gonna be under. So to the extent they're under, you gotta you gotta make a transfer from the department that has an excess to the department that is over. For instance, the finance department is over because an individual left, we had a payout that wasn't budgeted for comp time and vacation. So a transfer has to be made from another department to make up for that.
And then on the audit subcommittee meeting that we had last week, the $170,000 car, there was no accrual for that. That came up during the meeting. Is that in these numbers and where?
No, the car is paid for in the internal service fund.
We have I want to pick up on that. We have a separate analysis for the internal service fund and I asked Tom to provide a bunch of
I
information.
don't see it in here.
including his
It's,
work.
no, it's in the back.
It's in here. Let's,
Page 19.
yeah, let's go sequentially if we, because that's a separate topic. And there's quite a bit of data here. So, anything else on this summary, Mr. Walsh?
Okay, second revenue item, once again, it's fourth quarter pops up by 200%. Previous quarter. The building permits, so is that another sandbagged item that we?
I mean, that's just been increasing. That's an ongoing, you have additional projects, it's just activity.
Okay, so the first three quarters were accurate. And we actually, then what you're saying is that in the fourth quarter, we got $1 million or no,
That's, I mean, that's just actual, that's,
so we made 500,000.
yeah, and as I said, that,
What we thought.
correct. And as I said, that activity has really gone and flowed into this year.
And you mentioned something about the way the building inspector,
Managing the,
how's he, I heard you say in one sentence, but what's the difference? What's he doing now with it?
the way explained to me is that, the way explained to me is in the past, in many cases, someone would come in and say, I'm doing a construction project and it's gonna cost me, the value of the project is $5,000 or $500 because I'm doing it myself. Now, when they come in, he says, okay, give me the documents for the labor cost, the contract with the contractor. And in cases like that, the value of the project is higher than what individuals generally would have indicated that it was.
So we're not relying on the permit.
You're not relying on the,
We're actually getting backup now
correct,
for, to justify the cost.
correct.
So that should make the quarterly estimates more realistic going forward.
But again, this is the, in this area, it's been increasing throughout the year.
Well, yeah, I mean, you're saying the big fourth quarter jump was really new projects.
And some of those, because as we discussed last quarter, some of those started in the previous quarter.
And you actually document on page 4 different projects, and these were not anticipated.
But some of those were started earlier in the year.
Okay. All right. Town clerk revenue, once again. I mean, I thought it was enough to go like really 100% jump. It goes from $30,000 favorable to $558,000 favorable. And that's all income that came in the fourth quarter, or those other estimates not exactly accurate?
I think the other estimates were understated.
Understated by the finance department or by the?
Yeah, we get, this information comes from the department heads.
That's a big change.
But again, I think that, as we go through this, we've got people on board now and we're gonna drill down on those.
Okay, so it should be more accurate this coming year. Okay. Same thing with fire marshal's fees, went from 20 to 109. Is the increase from the variance from $20,000 to 109? Is that variance based on the number not being real for the third quarter? Or is that just additional fees coming in the fourth quarter, kind of like the building permits? Because sometimes those fees are tied together based on construction.
Jim, I would have to check. I think it's the timing when they came in, but I would have to double check.
And the state revenue, what's the reasoning why our state revenue for the entire year, it looked like we were tracking, well, nothing for the first quarter, but it would look like we were tracking favorable, but all of a sudden now state yanked money from us?
Well, it's a net of a favorable variance for the LoSiP grant. That was a grant that didn't ECS, Board of Education
that-
grants.
Yeah, there was a grant that did not come in as anticipated.
Is that a timing issue or?
That's a
is it
time,
just not-
the state, yeah, that's a timing issue.
And then put, we haven't gotten it.
From when this, well, this, yeah, when the state budget needs to be passed for some of that funding.
Okay. So the state budget did not pass with the funds, so therefore we didn't get them.
It was a reduction in,
Right, it was a
very often, so
reduction,
when the
yeah.
state budget, that's why those numbers would change probably.
Okay. And then the Parks and Rec revenue number is like all over the place. Starts off like we're gonna be $16,000 down in quarter two. Like quarter.
No.
Oh, I'm sorry. What's the other? You're right, because I was wondering how that was possible.
It's doc fees and human service revenues and human service classes. But it's primarily the large component of it is
Document fees?
doc fees.
Document.
Arena, yeah.
So how do we go from quarter two, we're gonna see $16 million, $16,000 in the hole. Then quarter three, we're looking like we're gonna be $273,000 over. Only to end up with $91,000 less or.
Are you on the other line or in the?
That's
Oh, the other line.
Now, the marina stuff should be in the Parks and Rec line.
Yeah, it is in the.
So I think the question that Mr. Walsh was asking about is on the other.
On the
line.
other line, I'm sorry, the other line, the very last line of revenue. It goes from. Is that where the doc fees are? Is that just other things?
That's just other things.
Well, I don't know how we go from $16,000 less to quarter three.
Can I just push, I mean, if we're gonna press the administration to give us their best information, these numbers are gonna change. They've always changed quarter to quarter. And, I think if we continue,
Well, I have a reason that I have the ability as a Board of Finance member, want to know why that happened.
And
That
that's-
is my question. Why did that happen?
legitimate, Jim, and what I'm saying is that we shouldn't expect that as of Q1, we're gonna identify the variances perfectly and they won't change. So I think they've always changed. I think there's a bias to be conservative because nobody wants to get beat up if, their budget comes under or whatever. And I think let's just ask the question. So Parks and Rec, I see Anthony on the screen if he wants to address that. Other, we heard the answers. I mean,
I didn't hear the answer for
we're
other.
gonna get the best information people have at the time. Does anybody have a question on Parks and Rec? Or no?
I'm on other.
Okay, so other, is there an analysis of other in here?
No, there is not, but
We have to go back to the munis pages?
other is comprised of 84 separate accounts. Across,
What's the largest?
yeah, it's.
You can get back to us on that, Ben. One thing I do want to just validate, when you do the budget book for next year, all these revised numbers, including the transfers, are going to be reflected in last year's actuals, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
On the other,
And just as we're going forward, as we go forward, Tom, you're gonna be making the report.
Mhm.
You see a number change from that? Like, when Caitlin would make the presentation, she would know, I'm gonna be asked about that. Why did it go from 273 positive to 93 negative? because that's almost like 373, 363.
Yeah.
So, you can get us the answer, but I'm just saying, wise in the future is if you see a variance like that, we're probably gonna ask about it.
Yeah. I mean, I looked at some and
Yeah, no, I appreciate, no, I appreciate it, but there must have been something that happened in other, I know it's 80 accounts, but there must be, you would give us a couple of highlights, like what were the big ones, like you just asked. And you can get back to us. I don't want to slow the meeting down over it, but I'm just telling you, try to smooth this for the quarter.
Other questions on revenue,
Yeah, I want.
Kevin?
The interest line, which came in at an actual 8.574 million. How does that compare to the investment income number in item 8 of the agenda, which is over 10 million? Are they not the
That's-
same number?
2 different years.
Yeah, this is 2025. The number that's in the packet is based on the valuation as of September. The portfolio is, yeah, it's a.
Never mind.
Portfolio, yeah.
So just so there's no confusion, so I had asked, even though this is the quarterly meeting and we're looking at June 30th numbers, there were a couple of large estimates that we voted on in the budget last year that had a lot of uncertainty around them, one being interest. So I asked if Tom would provide us a detailed estimate of where we stood at this point, even though we're not even at Q1 yet. So that's what that is later. And I also wanted to talk about where we stand on the speed camera revenue, which is why we have the new chief here. So we'll get to that. So it's a little bit of a hybrid. There's a couple things I just thought it might be helpful for the board to know about for the current fiscal year and not just looking in the rearview mirror.
It would just be.
Sorry about that
Every
confusion.
page.
Yeah.
Every
Yeah,
bit.
probably not labeled.
Item number has a date that it was prepared and the period to which it applies, because I wasted quite a bit of mental energy trying to figure that out.
I think the investment schedule has 9 September date on it. So
Yeah. But that page has no header, no footer. Anyway.
Okay, expenses, Tom?
expenses are summarized on page 6 and about 800,000 of the favorable variance is in salaries, which is on page 7. But if I just the items that on page 6 that are not impacted solely by salaries are legal, which is unfavorable 156,000. And that is due to primarily to the UI work and investigations. Human resources had additional cost associated with Paycom. We have not made the reappropriation or transfer for contingency. There's a large variance in hydrogen and water, which is due to rates, and Mr. Cottell is here.
Wait, Tom, contingency, how much of a transfer do you have to make for that?
190,000 relates to the balance is up. There's 160,000 that has to be made for a contract. That's
So that's gonna increase expenses
correct.
and reduce
And
the.
then we'll transfer out the balance. So the total balance should be transferred out. So that will increase expenses, yes.
Now, when you're talking about page 6 and 7, is that all under vacancies and churn or what's?
Page 7 it's a combination of primarily vacancies. Vacancies, and it's offset by folks who retired or left the town's employment and had payouts, but it's primarily open positions. And the timing of when employees were hired.
Now, when it says page 7, the second one down under fires, is 5 firefighters offset in OT. Is the OT in here?
No, this is just regular payroll.
regular payroll.
Correct.
So while there might have been savings in the payroll for firefighters, the OT could have actually been more than that.
But that would be, that would be reflected, that would be reflected in the fire line on page 6. So the page 6 is a net of all of the variances in the department.
Okay. All right.
The other,
Going back to vacancies. We've had some vacancies, well, I don't even know whether we've had. Where does, if there is, if people are put out on leave, like the fire chief in 2024, 25. Been on leave for a long time, right? Where does that money go? Where's that coming out of?
well, it depends on the,
Like, where?
I don't know all of these specific.
We have a deputy, we have a interim chief, and I.
It's in the budget.
It's in the app, so, yeah. So it's in the salary. I mean, if they'll continue to be
So
paid.
there's no variance. If someone was in the budget but they're on paid leave, there's no variance.
Correct.
It's not a vacancy. Can I just, before we get into this, since we're on this vacancy page, this is as of June 30th, which is appropriate. It supports the number. Would it be, Ms. Vitale, would you be willing to just, I know there's been a bunch of turnover in key positions. Would you mind just giving us a 2-minute overview of where some of these things stand? We mentioned earlier that there's a new controller on the way in. Can you just give us an
New
update?
controller on the way in. We had the benefits manager also left mid-July. New hire coming in.
22nd.
22nd also. Our DPW director, Frank Batiste, started 2 weeks ago. Risk manager started about 4 weeks ago, Rob Derry. So key positions that were vacant throughout July were filled over the last month, which is great.
And what's going on in HR with the HR director and the deputy below her? Is she no longer employed by the town?
Talk about personnel issues at that. I will give you an update at the next meeting on that.
Okay.
She is currently employed by the town, but in terms of the deputy, we're doing some reorganization in HR in terms of positions. The assistant HR director is no longer employed by the town.
Where does the payouts, where does that show up to?
It's in the departments. For example, as I said, finance, we had a person who left voluntarily, but there was a payout for comp time, accrued salaries. So it's in the department where the employee resided.
You have to do transfers to cover that, right?
Yeah, to the extent we're over, yes.
And the unemployment comp's up pretty dramatically. Up 28.5%, 128.5%.
Yeah, I mean, yeah,
28.5% to get to 100, so it's 28.50. So some of these people that are leaving are collecting unemployment too, correct?
yes, I don't know specifically which employees, but you know, people who left, yeah, they do.
Usually we don't see that on a year-to-year basis because unless we're having a planned layoff in certain areas, like we saw it during some of the VRIP stuff that we had done, because we knew we were letting people go and allowing them to properly collect unemployment. So this seems like a large number.
Yeah, I mean, except people leave and they are eligible, they collect unemployment.
Okay. Tom, where would costs for this, Mr. Becker's car, for all the service costs, the monthly costs, the modem costs with Verizon, satellite link up costs, all those costs, where does that hit our budget?
I mean, the fuel cost of, I think, it's where police and fire, I mean, there is a cost in those departments. It's serviced in terms of the, monthly cost. I'm not sure we have captured all of I have gotten invoices for all of those. I mean, there's about 40,000 for,
No, subscriptions, I think.
Subscriptions.
Yeah, because I mean, this vehicle has all this.
Yeah, I don't know, man. I just found out recently that there are subscriptions. I was not aware of the
So
subscriptions.
as you finalize the close, we need to make sure all those.
I don't, yeah. I mean, I was told recently there are subscriptions, and I may have even heard from you. I was not aware that those services were in the vehicle.
Well, you see the list of stuff that's on the vehicle, like, and I can ask the police and fire when they come up, but when you have modem costs, like for Cradle Point, I know what Cradle Point prices.
I'm frankly, I had not looked at the list.
And there's a monthly cost and there's a purchase cost or lease cost, depending on which way you go with that. But there's costs for these different subscriptions. And, you know, I just don't know where they go. Like, are they hitting, is that vehicle hitting in 2025 fiscal year? Is that hitting
Yeah,
fire? Because there was not an emergency management director budget. There is now in this coming fiscal year.
There are no subscription costs that have been paid that I'm aware of. I mean,
So Tom, it sounds like we probably have to accrue some.
we are gonna have
The
to,
vehicle was put in service in the last fiscal year. So I think, I don't know who has the vehicle, but whatever subscription services are attached to it, I mean, it's probably not huge amounts of money, but it should be accrued. So,
The vehicle, just to answer the question, the vehicle is currently with the fire department. We'll get specificity on where subscriptions were budgeted for the end of fiscal.
okay. Yeah, and I just,
That
my
is
concern
what-
is,
that
we
is-
want to make sure we've got a
No, I understand.
$7+ million surplus. We don't want to miss accruals and have them hit next year's budget if they belonged in last year's budget, A, and B, obviously want to know what these costs are. Is there anything that can be canceled? That's whatever, so.
And that, as we reported at the committee meeting,
Yep.
we're going to be looking at these vehicles, about what the equipment is in the vehicles, whether or not they're needed, if they should be split between police and fire, if it stays in the vehicle. That is a work that's still
Work in progress.
right now. The emergency management vehicle is with the fire department. They are looking at ways to use it to benefit our community. Chief Dunn is the emergency management director at this point. There was some radios there was equipment that was included in that number that were portable, that I believe the fire radios went to fire, the police radios stayed with the police department. So the equipment is being used to benefit our public safety officers and our community. But we'll get you those details on if there's any equipment in there that has subscriptions, where it was at the end of last fiscal year and where it is in the current budget.
Thank you. Mr. Sheriff?
I have a few questions on that. So I watched the audit subcommittee meeting last week. And I wanted to ask a few questions regarding our next steps. So the first thing that came to mind when I was listening to all of that was how we raised over and over and over the lack of qualifications this individual had to act in a CFO capacity. Okay, it's the first thing. He also had a car at that point in time that his company, his family car the car was being paid for by, I'm giving the history.
Right now, this is an emergency management director car that is currently.
Okay, this board was lied to on several occasions, okay? And I have the minutes, the dates. I want the tape pulled by everyone. I want an investigation done, okay? This board was lied to, okay? When I was asking the questions, John, you told me, I could give you the time you actually said, can we get back to the budget right now? Remember? We were lied to here. We have fraud, and how are you not all over this? Because we have.
Wait a second.
How am I
No,
not
no,
all over
Did you
it?
watch the
Yes.
audit committee
Yes, I
meeting?
did.
And we
Is this
weren't all
being
over
looked
it?
at criminally?
I
I wanna know.
Stop it.
Point of
Stop
order.
accusing us of not
Stop.
being over this. That's
Where are we
nonsense.
looking at this criminally? I want to know.
Oh, stop
No,
it.
what do you mean?
You're
was an acting
ridiculous.
How is it?
Well, why don't,
Tell me
did
how.
you watch the audit meeting?
Yes, I did.
Do you want to know the history of what happened here?
I know the history.
No, you don't.
Did you
You
spend
don't.
hours and hours and hours looking at every? single
Mr.
meeting?
Walsh asked back in June,
Over and over and over.
not over and over,
Yes, he
he
did.
asked in June
He did.
about,
He
listen to
absolutely
me,
did.
listen, here's what happened. He asked in June about the vehicle. Mr. Harris,
About one vehicle.
about one vehicle, Mr. Harris said
The
to him,
vehicle-
listen, this is what happened. Will you listen? Mr. Harris said, I don't know, but we want to conduct an audit on it. And he did that. And also Ms. Charlton agreed to that. The audit happened.
Actually,
the summer.
hang on, just to
Go
clarify,
ahead.
what I asked Mr. Harris, and he can confirm, is I want to look at all the vehicles
All of them.
that were.
I'm not talking about all the vehicles.
Well,
No, this is
I am,
important.
because
Okay.
I am.
Tell me
because
why
I want,
on our budget
Cheryl.
meeting number one.
Okay.
No, I have a question. I'm entitled to
to
ask. this question.
answer the question that you
I
raised.
haven't even said it.
Let-
Because
let-
you've already challenged me.
Let's
Point of order.
Let Amy get
Go
her
ahead.
question.
Okay, ask your
Okay,
question,
here's my
then I'm gonna answer.
I asked about the vehicle during our budget.
What vehicle?
The emergency management director's vehicle.
That was the old vehicle that he was driving
No.
past.
I asked about a new vehicle,
Go ahead.
okay?
Go ahead.
I asked about a new vehicle. I will send you the dates and times so I can give them to you right now. I was told by Bob Calamars during the budget meeting, while two people sat in this room and knew that that vehicle was ordered, okay? We were lied to. It is illegal to lie to a government body. It is. We were lied to. Why?
What did Bob Calamares tell you?
Bob Calamars said that the police were not covering the vehicle, not by his department, which is not a lie, because it was coming out of the internal service fund. Those two knew it. Why were we lied to?
But no, I hear what you're saying.
Why?
But-
And where are we looking?
Why are you
Where we
pointing
looking?
at us?
How is this guy still employed by our town? Is he still employed?
Mr. Becker has resigned.
Totally. Totally.
Has tendered his resignation.
Okay, thank God somebody's done something right. I'm sure. Because you know what? I want this investigated. As far as I'm concerned, he committed fraud. And I have a lot of documentation to show it. I want it investigated.
Who do you want to investigate it?
You tell me. What's the right protocol there, John?
Well, all right, everybody, can we?
No, we
Listen,
got him for misappropriation of funds. We got him for financial statement fraud, okay? We got him for lying for a government body. We told you the guy wasn't qualified in the first place. And I have statements where you stood up to this board and said on January 7th that he substantially elevated the role and performance of the CFO. He did not.
Were you here when the pre?
the
all right.
previous administration
I
CFO?
was.
No, you
Okay.
weren't.
I wasn't in this capacity. I was
Oh,
on
but
the
you
arts
weren't at
committee.
meetings.
All right.
Listen,
All right,
He
I don't,
committed fraud.
listen,
you should be careful with your.
exactly.
because
And
I don't think I
We
need to.
haven't had an
He
investigation.
sat down here and lied to this board. What do I need to prove?
Okay, I'm
Not
gonna,
once, many times.
would you like to, okay. Back to the beginning. So Mr. Walsh, so we were told, yes, that he was driving an old Tahoe during the budget hearings. This is what I knew. I'm telling you everything I knew.
Completely
Driving
true.
an old
I'm a
Tahoe.
ringing guy.
Hang on, that was a hand-me-down from the police department. And I think might have been told by the deputy chief, we didn't even know the cost of that car because it was old enough that we didn't have all the records. That's what we knew. I was not aware that another vehicle had been ordered. When the question.
100%. I don't think any of us were.
none of us,
Okay,
I
so when
know.
the question came up, Mr. Walsh asked that Mr. Harris gather the information on the cost of that vehicle, which was appropriate. What I said to Mr. Harris was, I'd like to know the cost of all the vehicles. Because we also heard during the budget that there were additional replacement vehicles that had been purchased through the internal service fund that none of us had been aware of. So what I asked Mr. Harris was, want to know about that vehicle. We want a comprehensive review of the whole thing. And that's what he had done, to his credit, immediately. And we had that audit report. And I won't go back and drag up ancient history about some of our previous things that have happened, but within a couple months, the audit was completed.
we had a meeting right
Two
away.
days after the audit was completed, we had an audit committee meeting and all the information was in front of us. So what I'm not gonna accept, and which is categorically false, is that anyone in this board tried to mislead anyone else. I think
I'm
we
not
all.
talking about you guys.
Okay, I
Not at
just
all.
want to be clear.
The two people I'm referring to were not you.
Okay,
It was
so,
our first select person and our, whatever
And the
title.
Selectman is no longer here to speak for himself or to give any context about what he knew and what he didn't know. So I'm gonna keep him out of it because I don't know what he knew. What we do,
I would
what we
probably
do
say we
know,
didn't know.
what we do know is that sometime more than a year ago, unbeknownst to me, I think unbeknownst to anyone on the board, the policy was changed for how the internal service fund was used. From what I can tell, it looks like historically, when cars needed to be repaired, they were paid for out of that fund. And we've got some evidence.
There are some.
Cars and other vehicles, okay? Autos, I know the police boat, we did know about the police boat. What we were not aware of was that when a car was totaled, a replacement, about a year ago, they decided to start replacing totaled vehicles and pay for them out of that fund. Just like they were doing other repairs and property claims. We didn't know that. We got wind of that, I think, for the first time during the budget hearings. Thus, that was why I asked Mr. Harris to make sure that the review was comprehensive and that we knew all the pieces. So what we learned during the audit committee meeting, and listen, we can get input from the chief, but there was a rationale for why the totaled cars should be replaced. They were needed in the fleet. If people were going to take an old one and drive it around, there might be safety issues or other issues. I don't really have an argument with that.
No,
The concern we had was that there was no transparency around it.
We didn't know.
We were not told. We didn't have a chance to properly consider it in the budget. And from everything we can tell, it wasn't done according to policy because the car autos were not put out to bid. They didn't go through the purchasing department. They were paid for on pink vouchers that went through the internal service fund. All policy violations, wrong, no transparency, everyone agreed, okay? And what has been done, is pink voucher policy has been changed. That's not happening anymore.
Okay.
Everything, the pink vouchers are gonna be close to a thing of the past. Everything's gonna go through purchasing, we're gonna have requisition orders. And by the way, those pink vouchers, for years, from what we can tell, those were signed off on by a number of individuals, CFO, budget directors, and department heads. That's the history, okay? We didn't know about it. We also didn't ask. We get internal service reports every year. There's a line item in there, property claims. It's the smallest number on the report. Probably 95 or 98% of what goes through that internal service fund is medical claims and other stuff. So maybe no one asked because it was a small number, but this has been happening for years. Lots of people in this town were signing off, current administration, prior administration as well. So the policy has been changed and we all agree it was wrong. Now, in terms of an investigation or an audit, whatever we want, whatever this board thinks is appropriate to do, we can do. What I did ask Mr. Harris to provide the board was detail of that property claims number for the past 3 years. And that is in this packet. So everybody can see all the line items that went through that. And if we want to have Connie audit that and make sure those descriptions are correct and that all that stuff is there, we can certainly do that.
I
But
think we should be looking at every time a pink voucher was used.
right, but I just want everyone to see that because if you go to the report and if you're on your printed copy, okay, you can start on page, I believe it's 20,
20, yes.
and we can go back further. But what I asked Tom to pull was the past couple of years, and you can see everything that's flowing through there in that fund. You'll see C support. That was, we had the boat sink and we had, we were renting a boat for $5,000 a month and we're gonna have the insurance deductible for the boat go through this fund. We were told about that. We have a bunch of dollar amounts in here for appraiser claims, Nova Auto appraisers. We have Circle Collision for repairs on cars. So again, when a car was not totaled, but it was damaged and needed to be repaired, it was always flowing through this fund. It was always being paid on a pink voucher for years. And again, we had the numbers in front of us. We probably didn't ask for all the details behind it, because again, it was a relatively small number in that fund in the aggregate. We did know about the boat. But if you look at this, you can go back and you can see what was in here. just for my perusing it, it looks like in the prior fiscal year, one replacement car was purchased, and then there were cars purchased in the current fiscal year. And then if you go back 2 years ago, you can see, I'm not sure, because, you know, not 100% sure, but based on the descriptions, it looks like we had repairs primarily and not full-on replacements. But again, very consistent in terms of what was done and how it was done. So that's the history. And if we want to, you know, have our, you know, and I will also say, just for whatever it's worth, this fund does get audited every year on a standalone basis. Mr. Santafonte does it. He has to provide a separate opinion on this fund. So not, it's called out separately in opinion. So he does sort of a full scope audit on this fund. We now have the detail of every dollar that went through that property claim account. So I would encourage everybody to look at this carefully. If you have any questions on these, but from what I can see, and Mr. Harris can tell me if I'm wrong, that's what I see. I see a bunch of auto repairs and other things. I only see replacements starting a year ago. And I agree, this board was not aware of the policy. Had we been aware, for sure, we would have talked about this a lot during the budget, because if you think about it,
A lot of money.
we budgeted for 10 cars and we replaced 5. That's a pretty big differential. I think we would have talked about it. We may very well have agreed that it was appropriate to put money, budget money here or in the police department or wherever else to pay for these cars because they're needed. And clearly we want to make sure our officers have what they need. We don't have vehicles that are unsafe driving around, but we didn't talk about it. There was no transparency. And I believe everyone's on the same page.
Yeah.
Having this here-
Jobs fund, we have a jobs fund, and no one came to us to say, do you want it to come out of the jobs fund? Or do you want it to come out of the internal service?
Shut up.
I also have a problem with our internal service fund being hit up on 2 occasions that I'm just looking at, just scanning for 2 Hamilton Beach 8-quart slow cookers.
What date?
3/7/24.
It's the slow
Or
What page you on there, John?
I'm up to page 21.
Having this
10 line
utilized.
items down, like what is that? The internal service.
Where is it?
Yeah,
Yes.
there's 2 Hamilton, there's a 2-pack.
But I believe that's when Firehouse had a fire in the kitchen. Had a,
Yeah.
So it's a,
things that were in
All
there.
right.
So when we have property claims that are either uninsured or we have to pay a deductible, this is where they flow through. And again, that, as far as I can tell, is consistent with history. Now, again, because, well, because 95% plus of what went through this fund was, you know, health insurance and workers' comp, we had a relatively small, in the scheme of things, number that said property claims. We also had another line item that said, you know, general liability claims. And which we always talk about a lot because that's litigation. Talk about that in executive session for every budget. We have not previously gotten this detail, but I asked Tom to pull it and thank you for including it. And this is what we're talking about. We can go back more years. We can have somebody provide more detail. If anybody wants to see invoices on this, make the request. But this is what it is. And it seems clear to me that the big policy change was made a year ago to include full replacement for vehicles that were totaled. That's what happened. Mr. Curley?
Yeah, and I would have liked this board to be made aware of that policy change. I think that was a mistake that was made. I personally don't care if the replacement vehicles go through the internal service fund or the type jobs fund. I think it's important to support the police department, and if you guys need to replace a car, you need to replace a car. But all of that should have been out in the open. Do you want to, or you just agreeing?
I mean, I agree, and I think it's where someone at a disadvantage in that for Selectman Gerber wasn't here, and Ms. Charlton's point. I feel like I just need to say that in terms.
We
of
don't know the
what-
context.
what the context or what was said, or just memory now of,
Right.
but I agree with you in terms of, we want to make sure that our fire and police officers have replacement cars as quickly as possible for their safety and the safety of the public.
And I think everybody on the board would support that. But where the dollars fall through the grate is these weren't budgeted, right? And so we had a miss on the budget, right? We budget for the outside jobs fund. We see that 10 cars are coming in. We take the revenue, have the expenses, but we don't have anything for these replacement cars. And if the internal service fund, after we do an analysis, we're comfortable that it's properly funded, we can budget for this in arrears. And if Mr. Harris, if we can make a note for this upcoming budget, Michael, I think that if this policy is going to stand where these cars are replaced out of the internal service fund, we have to budget for them.
Great.
And if the run rate is 5 cars a year, then that's what we have to budget
Well,
for. I would ask whether 5 is a lot or a little, or, what's the right number? But if we do it in arrears, it's a moot point.
Can I just want to, because I think there's two important things. One is we have a new risk manager. And one of the things in hiring this risk manager, because I do know Mr. Gerber, more than a year ago, had Connie do a full vehicle audit, and we had a slew of issues around how this town has historically managed vehicles. And, everything from making sure people have their licenses, like all of it, right? All of the risk management aspects. So one of the things we should look at is the cost benefit of not insuring these vehicles, because right now they're effectively uninsured. The deductible is so high that it really only covers heavy equipment. I would slightly disagree that we didn't budget for this. So if you look at the internal service fund, how money gets in there, it happens in 3 ways: a medical accrual, a workers' comp accrual, and then an accrual for a line item that used to be in HR called risk management. I think it was in 2022. And since then, we have intentionally budgeted 0 in the risk management line item, which covers property claims and litigation.
Yeah.
We've intentionally budgeted 0 because the fund balance was building up to a huge number.
Yep.
Because of our medical insurance was favorable, right? So we had so much fund balance here that we purposely did not budget. Because, and if we put money in here now, we're just going to be, the board can do whatever it wants, but I just want to be clear on that, because when we looked at the analysis of this fund every year, and the analysis that we would have looked at during the budget is on page, in everybody's packet, so look at page 18. Okay, those are all the columns in there. And that column called general liability, right? There's 2 line items in there: general liability claims, town property claims. Okay, those costs in there, we budgeted 0, even though we knew there were costs flowing through every year, because we were sitting with a surplus of $7 million. It's $7 million. So I just want to be clear.
Yeah, and I don't dispute any of that,
Yeah.
except for one clarification. When we had that discussion around this, we were talking about the medical stuff. We were not talking about replacing cars. And that policy,
I didn't say no, we knew this was always the same. We have a deficit under general liability. We've had a deficit, but we had so much over accrual on the medical side that we deliberately budgeted 0 in this general liability. I hear what you're saying.
Yeah, I remember a couple of years ago when we made an active decision to not
Yeah.
further fund that line item because it was a growing reserve. I remember that, but there was never a discussion about the potential of pulling $75,000 a car times 5 cars out of this fund.
Agreed.
So
And maybe-
that's my concern.
And again, I don't want to speculate because I don't know what the thought process was. Maybe somebody believed there was a surplus in this fund. It was significant. So this was the right place to fund those cars.
And that
If
may
that
be
was a
true, but this board
decision,
should have
It
discussed
should
it.
have been transparent
Yeah.
and we should have talked about it. And that's the issue.
Yeah.
Because,
Down though.
what's that?
Fund balance is going down.
Our fund balance is not, since we made the decision to start funding 0, our fund balance has not only gone up, it's gone up and we fully funded hypertension. Like before we did that, this fund balance was going to be close to $12 million.
So go up 5 million at least this year possibly.
No, I'm talking about internal service fund. The internal service fund, the projection right now has a fund balance, pure cushion, $7 million. And it's only $7 million because we fully funded heart and hypertension. It would have been 11 million, okay? So all I'm saying is, I think this is not about what happened in the policy violations. Aside from that, the issue of whether you want to replenish this fund with money, I think that's where this becomes relevant, because this fund is still overfunded, and the way it's been done, it's a little bit sloppy, but it was looked at as a singular fund. The columns, some were over, some were under, medical, huge over accrual, general liability, deficit, but in total, the fund had an enormous fund balance in it. And so that's, you know, that may have been the rationale, I don't know, but I think we're all in agreement that there was not any transparency in terms of the policy change to fund them, and our purchasing policy was not followed. The pink voucher should not have been used on this sort of thing. And I don't think anyone.
Can I ask a question? Because just because, so I watched the audit committee report too. I read through it, and I guess it's usual that there's not backup, but we don't see the pink vouchers. Okay, we don't see that. There's no dates on anything. What do you like? What can you give me color? Like, what did Bob Calamara say to you? Like, what happened? Because basically, we have a compliance culture here that failed. Okay, we had one person decide to do this, but I think multiple people signed that. It got paid. Multiple people saw this pink voucher and failed to act. Okay, so that's a breakdown. We have a hotline and an email thing that you can send ethics violations to, but it didn't happen. Apparently, the chief of police went to you instead of someone else. I don't like what happened. Like, explain to me at what point
I'm
did you?
sorry, I don't understand.
What you said that Bob Calamaris came to you with information. Like,
You
what?
mean during a public meeting?
No, I'm talking about
You
right
said
here.
there. Okay, I'm sorry.
here.
My fault.
No, no.
Yeah, right here.
Okay,
I can give you, let me answer your question.
But he was saying, because he said, I didn't buy those cars.
He
That's
said
what.
it right here,
Okay.
not to me
During the
personally.
budget season.
So, yeah, during budget hearing number 3,
Yeah.
we were 1 hour and 5 minutes into the meeting when I asked Bob about the emergency management director's vehicle. I knew about the marina. I asked when the car was given to him. Didn't know the exact date. I said, can you give me an idea on the month? He said October. I said, okay, I understand it ends in April. I said, is there any other vehicle being purchased?
Wait, what was in October?
Oh, I'm sorry, ends in April.
Oh.
Got it in October approximately,
Back.
giving it back.
They
in
needed it
April.
back.
That was
Yeah,
his
yeah, yeah,
old.
yeah, yeah.
That's the old car. That's the old car.
But no one said that they bought another.
So I
car.
asked then, are we getting him a new car? The answer was, we are not. Basically, and they're paying for it.
Understood.
No other vehicles being given in our budget. Is the response. At 254 in
In
the
our
meeting,
budget.
our budget,
The
Okay,
police
so
budget.
technically that was,
an accurate statement,
yeah.
our budget. 254, I asked the same question and chief, acting chief answered it. And I asked if they were giving him a car. And he said, no. And they weren't. Because he was building his own car. Obviously. That no one, I think, was aware of.
Well, I think what we learned during the audit committee meeting was the vehicle had actually been purchased in the fall.
It was.
Yes. Oh, I know. That's why I'm saying he was sitting here.
I'm not sure that was, I'm not sure he was the only one that knew about that. I don't
want to make speculation of who knew and who
Okay,
didn't know.
but I
But I
think.
certainly know that he knew what he was designing. I mean, he wasn't even designing a normal car. He was like, this is like the
Got it, agreed.
crown jewel here we got. Okay. Like, the bad car he's got. He's surprised he didn't get it to float.
I don't disagree, so.
No, we were all like, I wasn't insinuating we weren't.
But so, yeah, I guess what I'm saying is, yeah, like, you know, this stuff's gonna come out in audit, but there was a long time where it seems to be a lot of people knew that this was happening. And that's just a breakdown.
I don't know who, and I think we'll have to find that out when there's an investigation done.
Well,
I
but
have
for
no idea.
example, in the audit, we know that it goes through like, you know, it goes through budget director, it goes through, the CFO was the emergency management person, then it gets paid, right? Somebody has to pay something. So all the,
I don't know if it was paid because if you need an accrual, it wasn't paid.
Some of it wasn't paid.
Well, the vehicle was.
Vehicle was paid for.
Vehicle, but not.
The
all the,
uplifts weren't.
I don't know about the upgrades, but the vehicle was paid for because that was purchased in November or something. So yeah, there were, we had a breakdown.
Absolutely.
Pay
But-
controls.
Absolutely.
And also to
We
that.
were absolutely lied to.
Also to that point, so like, we know that the pink vouchers were sort of, it was just not a well understood policy and misused a lot. And I'm just saying this because I do think we as a board should pull back the reins. And when we're saying fraud, we're accusing a lot of people of fraud if we think that's fraud. Right? I mean, I think this was just like this is just a bad structure of a policy.
I don't know I don't know. I mean, I think we need to find out who knew and what people knew. I
Absolutely.
don't know, considering that I think 50% of the car hasn't even been paid yet for all the enhancements. I don't know who knew that. I don't know if somebody knew what they were signing off on. I mean, your boss comes up to you, asks you to sign. I don't know what went
The
on.
thing is that
But that's where, can I just push back a little bit? That is a problem. I mean, the budget director, your job, when you sign a pink voucher, it goes to the budget director for a purpose. He's supposed to check to make sure there's budget for it.
Absolutely.
So,
And also like,
wait a minute, accounts payable, you're supposed to make sure there's backup.
all these people should know,
All of it.
plus the whole concept of the pink voucher. We just looked at this at the purchasing policy committee. I mean, it's supposed to be, in theory, for small dollar stuff. It's certainly not a car.
No.
Maybe a foreman and grill, but.
Or
certainly not-
like an extreme emergency, like the cook,
Well,
Yeah, agreed.
gotta eat.
This is one of the reasons why, when that question was coming up, I was asking about the jobs fund. Because I was trying to figure out, Mr. Becker wanted a car that I understood was being developed in April, because he got it in April. Where was it coming from? Well, I presumed falsely. I was just so stupid. That's why I started asking for the jobs fund stuff and the policy for doing it. Because I thought that was only for police vehicles, not for a department that we had just set up a budget for. So I presumed it was coming out of that.
I didn't realize that's why you were asking.
Yeah, I mean, where was it coming from? I mean, the police want their car back. They have a need for it at the marina. They said, we need that car back. Chief Calamar said, we're gonna need that car back in this month because we need it back. Where was he gonna get a car from?
And when you
He
ask
asked
those,
he asked the question, are you buying him a car? No, we're not. Where was it coming from?
that's when you ask the questions and that's when the audit
That's why I
happened.
asked, that's why I wanted to know where
2 months.
every invoice. So, but-
Well, one thing just on this, on the fund we're looking at here, I think it'd be very helpful to put an estimate and have it be in the police budget so that we can get a true reflection of what the total spend is. Like every time we have like,
Replacement vehicles, you mean?
Yeah.
Per year?
yeah, like we do a run rate estimate and put it in the budget and give some kind of relief or transfer going.
No, I think that's a good idea.
If you don't have a true spend, if you're burying costs in other areas, having done
Same way
it
with
for many
jobs.
years, you're not seeing it.
We pressed, we had to make adjustments to the budget 2 years in a row. I think the majority supported it, that we specifically made sure that even though that money was coming out of the jobs fund, it was grossed up in the budget book. It was in the police department expenses and we show the revenue coming in. For transparency, for history, so that we could see what was there, understanding that if the police force is growing, there may be a need for additional cars. If the jobs fund ever runs out and we have to come up with that money directly from the taxpayers, we know the history. So, look, at the end of the day, whether it comes from the internal service fund or a department budget, it's all taxpayer money. It's all the same. It doesn't matter if it's, if it comes from a fund that had surplus in it, that surplus is cash that belongs to the town and whatever.
It
So
all comes from the taxpayer, but you don't have true clarity.
I know, that's,
You.
so I'm agreeing that it should probably, I think the right place for it is in the department, because also, let's face it,
And we'll
there's.
give them, when we go to the next
there
budget,
should
we
be-
should give them relief for historic runway.
And account for
in, so that they have some
Look at,
kind of
look at the
a,
insurance coverage, ask about accountability. How many cars are getting totaled? Why? What are the circumstances? All of those.
driver's ed.
So I think we're all in violent agreement here, not disagreement, agreement. We are all in agreement.
Can I ask a technical question of Mr. Harris? Is it possible, so if we follow, I agree with you that we should do a better job tracking that. The way that we did it with the new cars was transfer money from the outside jobs fund as revenue in, then you show expense for new cars. That's the offset. So it's a net zero to the taxpayer, but we have a record of it in the, on the expense side. For the replacement cars, if we followed the same process, we'd have a transfer in from the internal service fund to a revenue line and then an expense line for the 5 replacement cars. Is it possible to, in Munis, to have a separate line item for replacement cars as opposed to new cars, just so we can track them and see the difference as to what's coming from one fund versus the other?
I think it should be as simple as setting up a sub account if it doesn't already.
Yeah, just separate.
Yeah, shouldn't be.
That would be helpful.
Can I ask?
Is there also a way, go ahead, Shane, you were asking first, go ahead.
All right, this is gonna be a dumb question. It's a little off, a little bit off topic, parallel, but I was wondering whole time with the replacement cars, like we have a fleet of police cars, right? Like many police cars. And not everybody's on the road at the same time. So I'm assuming like you can swap cars. So I'm wondering why there was this like necessity. Why do we need, why did we need to buy 5 replacement cars suddenly?
Sure, thank you. So a couple things. Every car is different. So our patrol cars have certain equipment in it. They have a cage in it. They have a computer in it. Our detectives cars don't have a cage in it. They don't have equipment in it. Can't operate. They all can't operate the same. If we had every car exactly alike, which is not possible, we could do that. But not having every car in a specific function. So patrol is where we typically see our most crashes. Those are officers responding to calls for service. They're responding to help other officers. They're responding to help for anything. And in the midst of that call for service, they crash. Yes, some of them are our fault. We hope to not have them happen, but it's the cost of doing business while responding lights and sirens at times, going around certain things, and the officers are human and they crash. So that's kind of like why it occurs.
Okay, ask a follow-up question. My brother happens to be a retired letter carrier. And they have protocols to make sure when they get out of the truck, they put their chocks under the wheel so they don't roll away. And if they get into a fender bender, they have to go for a driver in, stuff like that. If you have an officer who's in an accident, what process do they have to go through before they go back?
So there's a process that we talk about why the crash occurred. So if it's the officer's fault by complete negligence, an investigation is conducted. And for instance, one of the officers who totaled one of those cars was suspended for 30 days, unpaid. So we are very strict, and the reason why is because we have a lot of liability, and we're very concerned about how our image comes around. So when the officers are careless for the sake of being careless, we discipline them. When they get into an accident because they're responding to a baby choking, we kind of balance it and say he's trying to get there and he crashed because he made a mistake. If you make a mistake because you are completely doing something out of the norm or irrational, we discipline them.
Helpful, thank you.
Yeah, sure.
Can you just, and this is, I don't want to veer too far off our agenda here, but since we're on this topic, and putting aside the emergency management vehicle, so I believe this year purchased 4 replacement vehicles.
Yes.
Due to cars being totaled. And historically, we hadn't done that. Like what we understood is, you crash the car, like grab an old Crown Vic and kind of suck it up until next year's budget. Were you, the thought process, and putting aside, I don't want to get to, we all know transparency was an issue, policy violations were an issue. But in terms of the actual change that was made to replace those vehicles, were you or Chief Calmaris involved in this decision? Is that something you advocated for? Why is that important? Is it important? Is that something we should expect going forward?
So if you don't mind, I'd like to speak going forward now.
Okay.
Maybe Deputy Chief Wyatt would be able to answer from the
Yeah.
past.
No, I'm just trying to understand if we were,
Sure.
it seems to me there was some decent rationale
Sure,
for
totally get it.
replacing the totaled cars. I just want to understand.
Sure. When we total a car, as you see, there's a lot involved in building that car. When we total it, now we are behind the 8 ball months and months and months because we can't get the car in, can't get the equipment in time. So if I can only speak going forward, because that's my knowledge of this, that it helps us so that if we have a car that's totaled, we're not struggling with shoestring, trying to make a car work for us, because that's essentially what we do. When we total a patrol car, which is typically the cars that are smashing, because they're out there using calls for service, we hope to get a car to replace it and not have to have this, let's piecemeal one and rob Peter to pay Paul. Because that's what typically happens. Now, mind you, if there's times where our cars have been totaled because they're out of warranty and the motors have blown. We had a history of cars blowing motors. They were Ford Explorers and we saw it across our fleet. And the Ford Explorer motor blowing, the body looked great, but it couldn't drive. So our mechanic would take that totaled car and save it like in a boneyard, for example, and take, if God forbid, we get into an accident and there's a fender that's smashed and it's our fault, he would take that fender from the blown motor and put it on there. If the officer smashes the car or we're involved in a crash that's our fault and it's unrepairable and we can't take any parts from it, that's when we need to have some type of resolution, and that would be a huge help to us to have a replacement.
Okay. So, no, that's helpful. And again, I'm not glossing over any of the policy violations or the lack of disclosure or anything. It seems like this is something that we have to keep in mind for the future, and that this, 10 cars a year is something that probably is not going to be workable.
Sure.
Just in terms of meeting the needs of the department.
Sure.
Is what I'm hearing.
Yeah, no,
Okay.
you're absolutely correct.
Did you have, Jim?
Yeah, just follow, because I've seen this happen. I've been around too long. So I've seen years where, number one, welcome. Thank you. Our police chief.
What a great first meeting for you.
I appreciate it. That's great. Sounds great.
That's
Fair,
far
Chief,
away. It's usually not this exciting.
That's okay.
It's our first time meeting.
Keep it
so,
spicy, come on now.
It's first time meeting, so I just wanted to welcome you. I look forward to working with you. Deputy Chief Wyatt, great. Well, I mean, so I'm looking forward to continue to work with both of you going forward. But I've seen years in budget years, not recently, but ways back where the budget comes in, it's got free, how's it 12? But people explain, well, we lost 2 last year, so we need to make up. But we've done it before we budgeted it. 5 seems like a lot. Do you consider that was a lot?
I think it's a lot.
Okay.
It's a lot for
a lot where it affect safety and getting cars, getting your men and women on the road to do the job they need to do with. Correct?
Yes, correct.
That was one of the reasons why there was no immediate need as opposed to, I can't wait till the next budget season. I need to get.
I need vehicles. That's exactly right.
So that makes sense.
We had, if I could just add one thing, we've had this happen before where a flood at this building
Yeah.
Oh, I remember that.
flooded our school
Yes.
cars, and that was,
Somebody.
I think we're still trying to make up for that. Or Deputy Chief Wyatt was in charge at the time.
Stop.
He turned the color of his shirt when he noticed the car was.
I'll just throw in, that's a perfect example of an insured risk that we should have.
Sure.
If we have a single incident, like a flood, that, that results in the loss of, a
Sure.
number of vehicles, like
Yep.
right now, we don't have that level of insurance. And that's, I think, part of this process, and hopefully our risk manager is going to be looking at this, but because I don't frankly know whether it makes sense to insure individual vehicles if insurance companies usually don't lose in this equation.
Sure.
Usually you end up paying. And so if we're consistently losing cars and they're insured, my guess is our premiums would eventually exceed the benefit we get out of it. But certainly I think for, an incident that results in, a loss of a number of vehicles, or I don't know. I mean, this was the first time I understood that these vehicles with all the upfits, where even the patrol cars are as expensive as they are.
Sure.
The
They're
radios. and everything.
expensive. The rates have gone up for sure, but to everybody's point, 5 cars is a lot. And if we see 5 cars go for one fiscal year, it's a lot of money. It's a lot of energy to try to make up for those 5 cars lost. I haven't seen 5 cars in my career in a long time. Happened when I first started and then just, so. And then the ones that we do get into motor vehicle crashes with other operators who are at fault, we ensure that we are getting the insurance information and we forward the information to our risk manager, who I hope was, billing that insurance company for the money that we are, and that's why I say I hope, because I don't know.
Well, that's a good point, because when I look at this detail, I'm not saying insurance recoveries, it may very well be that we're just putting in the net amount here.
Sure.
But yeah, that's an issue, are we, if someone else is at fault, getting,
We submit
getting.
every time we get into an accident that's not ours, that's not our fault. And if we have an insurance company to bill to. Now, there's two different things, insurance companies to bill to. We forward every report to the risk manager with statements and the recovery audit estimate. And then if it's somebody who's uninsured, and we arrest them, we go to the courts asking for a reimbursement from the court. So there's some times where that happens, where that.
So the police handle that?
We go to the court with the estimate, say, hey, court, here's the estimate. Then they in turn would deliver a check to.
They take restitution.
Part of the deal.
But okay, so it's
Yeah,
not
part of
like
the
our
deal.
risk
Yeah,
management.
We gotta
function would
reimburse the
handle?
police.
That's right.
Restitution.
Yeah, that's correct. And we've had that happen on numerous occasions for not just cars. Somebody smashed our window while we're arresting them in the front lobby, and that went to court.
It's interesting. Where is those dollars coming in?
Probably miscellaneous there's a miscellaneous category for police revenues. So
Okay.
If it went back in the internal service.
It
fund,
should, and that's my
you're gonna
point.
Take the money, you should get the revenue.
Exactly,
Yeah,
yeah.
Yeah.
So
Once we move it all over there, we'll go back there.
either way, it should be
So it's all
consistent.
captured in. the
Yeah, we
same
shouldn't have the
budget.
expenses in one place and the recoveries in another, but yeah. That's helpful.
It might be in there. You just maybe may not have gotten any from the year that we looked at.
Yeah.
It might be.
In a couple of years.
well, it seemed like 27,000 that we looked at.
Last fiscal?
So Chief Wyatt, thank you for explaining that, your need, and that kind of drove a
Harris.
little bit of it. Harris. My question, I guess, is you lost 5. They ended up with 4. Right?
Yeah.
Because one was taken by the emergency management director. Whose decision was that?
I don't know that.
You weren't chief.
I was not chief at the time. I don't know if Deputy Chief White has any knowledge of it. I don't know.
You still lost.
We lost the car for sure.
Okay. And now that car, that Mr. Becker's no longer in that position, is now being given to the fire department.
Not given.
No. The Chief Dunn is the emergency management director. Car has been given to the police department.
Oh, it has.
Yes, the police,
When we were last met,
I did not know, at that point,
you said.
at that point, the car was sitting in town hall parking lot.
Yes.
Did not know what was going to happen to the car because the chief had a car. So there was a question of, well, what happens? Does the chief get that car?
Anybody wants. to talk.
Can that car communicate with Mars?
Car is not, there's not that, I think we're really building this car up to be a little bit more than it really is in terms of.
I mean, you lost 5, you got 4,
Got
but
one
that
back.
was 4 more.
Now they are
More than
home.
we would have got.
Okay,
So-
so you made out okay, I guess.
Where is the car though? You said, I missed what you said.
The car right now is with the police department. So the police department,
To figure out how to best utilize
Yes,
it.
yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Okay, so now you got your 5th car back. Okay, because what wasn't making sense, that select woman, was you were saying that you were giving it to Mr. Dunn because he was now being named.
no, I said that Mr. Dunn, that Chief Dunn was going to be the emergency management director. And then I think you asked me, now what's going to happen to Chief Dunn's car?
First I asked you,
And I said, I had not made it.
You had to have conversations.
I needed to have a conversation on how to best use that car for the good of our community.
first I said,
Well,
place her down a car for public safety. You said you were gonna support public safety, and you said, oh, I'll support buying them a new car. Will you on the Board of Finance? And
Going forward, yeah.
going forward, and I said, yeah, I guess, but I will tell you, I went home that night, thought about it, and it was just like, wait a minute. This makes no sense.
Well, it's,
Whatever, I'm glad it's.
I think, believe it's worked out,
Yeah.
and we've talked about how to use this car for our community, which is what the original intent of the purchase was.
Seeing this car online on an Instagram of a company that wants to advertise it in the Batmobile. It would seem that you need to add some things to the car, lighting wise, because there's no blue lights on it, correct?
The lights, to my understanding, can be altered to turn blue and red at the same time by a.
Good, so.
Is it marked the vehicle? That's Fairfield Police.
It's not marked. No, it's not marked.
Have it
It
marked?
costs a lot of money to mark that car.
Okay.
It is, lights are red right now, was being used by the emergency management and have to use red. So half the lights can be programmed.
Yeah.
It may cost something to do that. I have to find that out.
So I'd like to, I don't want to keep the chief here all night. I have one other question for you that's not car related, but are there any other questions on the car?
Can it float?
I would like to
I mean-
try.
Okay,
I don't have a question about the car, but I have one other
Maybe.
question while he's here to ask him.
I do too. Is it about the speed lights cameras?
No, but.
No, but that is a big topic. I'm curious.
Yours might
then.
take a little longer, so you want me to just ask him the question that I want to ask?
Sure, yeah.
It should be simple. So we had a budgeted number in there for what the police chief makes, and I know you're brand new, so, and congratulations. Are you making what our budget number is that's in our budget book for this coming year, since you came in after July 1st, correct?
I came in after July 1st, correct? July 16th.
Okay.
Yeah, my salary is what Chief Calmaris was making.
So that's the number that's in the budget book, correct? Okay, that's your comp package.
That's your contract
I don't-
number?
Well, I don't have a contract yet.
You mean you don't have a contract?
I don't have a physical contract yet.
It's in process.
I thought the.
Yeah.
It's in process.
Okay.
Okay, because the police chief and fire chiefs always have a contract, correct?
Going to be, it's in process.
Okay, and that's gonna stay whatever that number's in there. I just want to make sure we don't have a variance right from the start, like we're already behind. Okay. All right.
I think we're all on the same page with that.
Thank you. So just while we have you, can you just give us a very brief update of where we stand? And in all transparency, I did ask the chief about this a couple days ago, and I asked him to update the board so you could give us a status report. Because we were a little nervous when we budgeted over $1 million for those cameras, and I think the big issue was timing of when they would be installed. And so maybe you could just give the board an update on that.
Sure. If you don't mind, Captain Irizarry worked on this for about 1.5 years.
Fine.
I don't mean to put him on the spot, but I'd
No, no.
rather get accurate information.
Well, we came.
Yeah, exactly. I made him put his tie on. He's killing me for having put the tie on.
Yeah, welcome. Thanks for coming and thanks for sitting through all of this.
Thanks for having me. So, as you all know, the ATSDs were codified by the RTM on February 24th. The very first week of March, I just want to give you a brief timeline as to where we're at, and why. So the first week of March, I met with purchasing to discuss RFPs, the design of that. It took about 3-4 weeks to get that RFP published, and we did so on April 15th. May 13th, we conducted interviews for the RFP. We had 3 vendors participate and we yielded no results. In short, I didn't like any of the companies or what they had to offer. They were charging the taxpayers way too much money. And I decided to talk to purchasing to have the RFP republished. We did that on May 14th, June 9th. We conducted the interviews, and on June 25th, we awarded the ATSDs to a company called Ultimate. On July 1st, we had our first meeting with Ultimate. Between July 3rd and August 20th, we've had several meetings with Ultimate to get the permit plan for OSTA, the Office of State Traffic Administration, put together. On August 22nd, I'm sorry, on August 21st, I submitted the plan to the Fairfield Traffic Authority for review. On August 22nd, the very next day, I submitted the plan to OSTA for state review. On September 4th, I received a response from OSTA saying they needed additional information. Between September 5th and September 9th, I assisted the vendor with my team to get the information that they required. On September 10th, I instructed my admin to resubmit that revised plan to OSTA. And on September 15th, I received confirmation from OSTA yesterday that all the items needed to initiate the 60-day review by the state has been received. So with that in consideration, we're looking at November 14th as the latest that we're gonna get either an approval or a denial for ATSDs throughout the 6 school zones in Fairfield.
What might cause them to deny the application?
I'm hoping nothing.
No, okay.
You know, Chief says a year and a half, it's more like 2 years, because if you look back, I got the first 6 school zones with reduced speed limits with this in mind that at some point we could utilize those 6 school zones for ATSDs in the future. So that took a lot of work in itself, and then, you know, followed up with a year and a half with going through the RTM, getting the ATSDs codified, and now getting a permit for those.
So if we get this approval in November, then what's the timeline from there?
Great question. So it really depends on Mother Nature. Ground freezing can have an effect. We met with Ultimate this morning at a Chiefs conference meeting, and I asked them to break down best case, worst case scenario. Initially, the worst case scenario was the spring of next year. They're saying if the ground is freezing, if we have a cold fall or a bad winter, they cannot drill into the ground, putting poles up and set up new cameras. So that's why they pushed it back to April. But if we have a warm fall, which I'm hoping for, because I hate the cold, then I'm hoping, you know, I don't want to nail down a date. I think it's premature to say that because I don't even know if it's going to get approved. I'm hopeful it is because we put a lot of work and energy into this. I'm hopeful that we could have it by the end of fall or early winter.
Could you get approval before the end of the 60 days or probably
I
not?
would hope so. Only because I put in all that work to get the 6 school zones recognized by OSTA with reduced speed limits. So that's half the work
They
right
know
there.
about it.
So
Yeah.
I'm hopeful that we could get something even sooner.
Yeah, 60 is the max
Max.
time that they could,
Hopefully
they
they'll
have to do it.
do it before that, which will
Yes.
give you some more time.
So I seem to recall that we had 10 or 11 different schools that were targeted, but it was gonna be done in phases. You just talked about 6 schools. What is the rollout schedule? Is it gonna be 6 and then we have to wait till next fall before we get the next wave, or what's the rollout?
Sure. So the first 6 school zones were approved by OSTA for reduced speed limits. That happened late last year.
Yep.
I immediately started working on the second phase for reduced school zones. That includes 9 additional schools. Depending on how successful or not ATSDs are throughout the town, we can look at expanding that program or just stopping at the 6. So those 9 school zones that I have applications in with OSTA are finalizing their studies now. I was just told that they're looking at approving.
So we're gonna have 15.
Very possible 15 schools.
And can you list the 6 schools that are in phase 1?
Sure, it's gonna be Burr Elementary, Riverfield, Roger Ludlow and Middle School is gonna be a combined school zone. Notre Dame. And I mentioned Riverfield.
Yes. Mill Hill?
Dwight Elementary.
White.
How many is that?
That's 5.
5.
Sherman? That's phase 2 or phase 1?
Notre Dame, Ludlow, Dwight, Burr,
Osborne Hill.
High School, and Riverfield.
Oh, good, no
Oh,
Sherman, because I'm around.
Ward is the one you
Sherman.
Ward is the one he didn't mention.
Yeah.
Ward is the 6th.
Okay. And can I just,
Last phase.
so this issue, potential weather issue. I mean, how long does it take to drill the holes for the poles? Like if we get What does that whole construction phase look like?
This is the first time we're doing this, so I really cannot give you an educated.
I mean, do we just need a warm week or does it take like a month to put these? We
I
don't
would
know.
imagine it's a little bit of a setup because there's a lot of calibrations and the camera setup, the power setup and all of that. It's not more than just putting a pole. There's a lot behind it, but I cannot. give you-
Yeah, I was just sort of wondering about the weather dependent piece, which sounds like it's the ground versus.
Captain, is the power to these direct off of the pole? Or these solar charged up?
They're direct to the pole.
Okay, so each one of them needs a whole, this electrician and all that stuff.
That's good.
All right, is Fairfield Prep gonna be one of the schools?
That's on the next phase of schools.
Big.
I initially-
North Benson, getting it down to 20 miles an hour, it's like, but yeah, you'll probably make $1 million there.
Yeah, my initial target for these 6 school zones was based on accidents, and that's why I picked those 6 school zones initially. And I wanted to try to include schools where you have young drivers driving to them, which would be the high schools. So that's why I targeted Notre Dame, Ward, and Buffalo. Prep would be the next go around if we decide to go that route.
Is Fairfield University, like around the university, gonna be a zone? Are
Yeah,
you
that would-
considering universities to be part of your schools? or
No,
Okay.
cannot use universities. That's why I'm
Okay.
targeting Notre Dame and Fairfield Prep. It happens to be that proximity.
Gotcha.
Is there a
Can
sheriff?
you use,
sorry.
school buses instead of having them on the roads, actually put them on a school bus?
I think under Chief Paris's time in traffic was assigned there. We did implement that on the school buses and it was not a success.
Yeah, I can speak to that if you'd like. So school buses are not for speed enforcement, it's just for red light violations. And in my history as a traffic officer and supervisor there, what happens with the school bus violations is that you need an officer to verify every violation. So what we were doing is taking officers off the road from doing enforcement, sitting at a desk for hours upon end. And we would have to have the officer review camera footage. A lot of them was mistakes. A lot of the times it was errors on behalf of the camera, but it took a lot of energy out of us. And we recognized that we're missing an officer on the road to do actual enforcement, or we could just follow the school bus. So we transitioned to that, and we found it to be better because at that point, we find that driver behavior slows when people don't know where we are. And if you constantly have, these cameras on the school bus, and the way to get around it and go on the other side of the bus to the one side, it was more problematic.
Thank you, Ms. LeClaire. Mr. Chair?
How does this timing tie to what we had in the budget, our assumptions?
I cannot speak to the budget. My role was strictly
I was
operational.
about to pull it.
So here's
I know you
the
wanna roll
scenario.
over
What,
this.
if these don't get in until April,
Are we still we have $1 million.
We have a huge hole.
Yeah.
we have to figure that out, yeah.
And once they go in, we have a 1-month grace period. So it wasn't until April, we basically have, maybe a month or two in fiscal year where we would, okay.
You gotta think what you're talking about.
I think the timing we had was the end of February.
To start?
To start
I
collecting.
have a note, end of February. That might have been all 15 were in.
Yeah, I thought it was.
I thought it was the beginning of
September.
September.
Yeah, I think that was to have full, like the full Monty in there.
I think it was like October,
I
November.
thought it was the fall, yeah.
But Mr. Gerber had talked about the plan for the first selectman's office to have a lot of communication to the town residents to make them aware that this was coming. Obviously, this is delayed a little bit, so not necessarily a high priority, but it's on your list to make sure.
In communication about timing for that and newsletter first, just letting people know it's coming and then they'll be based on understand concerns around budget, but some other communities that have put these speed cameras in have made millions. Like,
And I don't think that's our goal,
months.
but
Yeah, our goal is to get people to slow down.
No, but I mean, well, I know that's not the goal. The goal is to get people to slow down, but in the context of we're gonna make budget, I think that we probably are going to make budget if we get them in mid-spring. Based on the experience of other towns that have put them in over the last couple months.
Chief, you weren't here when this presentation was originally made, and I just heard you say something, you said that you think speed enforcement makes the most difference when people don't exactly know where it is. And I guess I can understand that. So based on that, and now that everybody will know, because you're required by the law to have a sign that says speed camera coming up, or whatever it's gonna say. And then people are gonna get all these tickets, and there'll be tons of letters to the editor, and whoever's the first select person will be getting a zillion calls.
Yep.
You know, 'cause 3 children could go out, and run you up a $2,000 bill in a month. Okay, so, how do you feel about these speed cameras? Do you think that they will be effective?
If I could speak honestly, I've been a longtime traffic supervisor, crash investigator, crash reconstructionist. And I've known and seen history of when people's behavior changes is when, like I just said, is when they're not aware of where we are, where our vehicles and traffic are unmarked. When they're not aware as to when police officers are in a certain area, we find that their behavior changes because they're expecting us to be there. What I'm afraid of, and again, this is me speaking just from my heart. What I'm afraid of is that this could potentially cause issues ahead and in the rear of these cameras, because people like to make up for that time. When you lose time in delays and you slow in a certain area, I've seen it where people make up the difference in time because they need to get to work on time in the areas followed. So what I'm hoping that doesn't occur is a change in behavior opposite of the violation signs and speed cameras.
I'm also hoping that people don't get rear-ended as they put on their brakes, because they know where it is, and someone rear-ends them.
Sure.
During a school morning that's busy.
This is new to Connecticut, so I don't know what to expect out of it. You know, it's kind of hoping.
It'll be people driving slow past schools.
Really, that's exactly right.
Which is really, as
The
Mr.
goal.
Curley stated, the goal is to really make our school zone safer.
And the answer to the parent who says my kid has $2,000 worth of tickets, is take the car away from your kid.
Slow down.
Come on,
Yes,
that's what we're trying to do here.
that's how I was brought up. I wouldn't have a car.
Cool.
About a month ago, I tried to do 20 miles an hour.
It's hard.
It's brutal.
Hard. Put the cruise control on to try to go on Mill Plain Road.
Yeah.
And people were trying to pass me
That's it. It's the social pressure to speed.
or honking their horn, thinking that something was wrong with the car. It's gonna be,
Well, they're gonna learn.
Everybody will know it's coming.
Speed
You won't
limit's gonna
know.
be 25, right? That's one.
I'm sorry?
The speed limit's gonna be 25, not 20.
It's 25 outside of the school hours, hour in the afternoon,
Outside.
hour in the morning.
Okay.
During that hour, it drops.
Okay, that's good to know.
It is.
Well, I
When
guess
it
we'll
is.
see. All I know is they're in Florida, they're everywhere. And I will tell you personally, it does change your behavior. You know, you see that yellow light, you're like, you know, it's-
my son went to school in Baltimore, on the highway, and Waze would tell me exactly where each one of these spots were. And I didn't even need Waze to tell me where the spots were. Because I was in a traffic jam every time there was one. Because somebody slows down and then everybody has to slow down.
That's good.
And yeah, I know, so it's like, but it's like, okay, so I don't know how much money they're making. We're all in traffic jam going by it, you know, so.
Yeah, it
don't
does seem contradictory because on the one hand, people change their behavior, but on the other hand, presumably towns are making millions of dollars. So I guess we'll see.
Started, just rolled it out. Yeah.
Yeah, all right. Any other questions or can we let the chief go, Lloyd, and the rest of his evening? Okay, thank you very
Thank you.
much.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
I appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you.
Number 6.
All right, no, we're still, I don't think we got a little sidetracked here. We jumped ahead to the internal service fund. By the way, I did ask Mr. Harris, I think, I'm not sure, I might have one more quarterly meeting left in me before I hire for this board, but I did ask Tom if he would make the internal service fund analysis a regular part of the quarterly package going forward. So I think that would be helpful. I also, though, the internal service fund should be getting a lot less complicated because now we won't have medical self-insurance in there anymore. So we're going to be on a fully insured plan. And so that big fat cushion that's sitting in there is just, I'm sure, going to be a topic of discussion going forward. But anyway, before we got into that, I don't know what page we were on.
We're on page 6, I think.
So we got through I think the expenses, we got through the vacancy report. Ms. Vitale gave us an update on personnel, the vacancy report. The fund balance, I guess we could,
Well, there was one question I had on,
yes,
still on the preliminary financial summary.
sure.
There was a larger number that added up to the expense. I'm talking about page 2.
Yeah,
And it's the last expense. It's because I understand why Parks and Rec is down because you're making more money, it costs more money, you know, all that stuff. But the last item, DPW and other, the 1,657,000, which basically we were basically showing almost zero, and all of a sudden that shows up in the. What was the reason for that?
If you look at page 6, a big chunk of that is DPW, Public Works. Public Works.
Yep.
That's really savings from, well, there's some salary in there, but it's material cost.
The utilities in there, Tom?
The utilities in there. And
snow
Mr.
removal
Ellis here.
stuff.
And basically it's attributable to what described as more favorable weather than was expected when we did the budget.
So it'd be heat, it'd be the plowing, overtime, be all those things.
And just to follow on that, sorry, this is why I asked the question before. Oh, hi.
John, watch it.
Yeah, no, John, yeah, come on up.
Stretch the legs.
No, from a budget perspective, though. I mean, that's why I asked.
Reason to come. That's good.
Exactly.
Thank you for converting.
All right, I do have
Talk about
a,
every subject you watch.
hang on, I do have a finance question first,
Yes.
if I could. So the reason I asked if we are updating the budget book with actuals, including these transfers, is because every year we have a pretty significant surplus in DPW. And I don't recall, and so if that's getting reflected in the actuals, you know, that would, and then we keep budgeting for higher costs the next year. I don't remember, it's not my recollection that we're having huge increases in the DPW budget every year. So I just want to make sure that the case is that when we finalize this and when we make transfers, because presumably we're going to make transfers out of DPW to cover other departments, that's going to be reflected in the budget book next year with lower actuals, right?
Yes.
Because every year DPW is the department that has the surplus, that drives a lot of the expense surplus, just because the uncertain nature of, you know, snow removal and all these things, right? So.
We seem to have had a number of good years in a row.
Yeah.
That's my recollection. Talk about
And
that.
being frugal and not want to waste taxpayers' money. But yes, a lot of it, so of this amount, about $370,000 is related to payroll issues, whether it be social security, vacancies, people on workers' comp, where 75% of the pay is paid out of workers' comp. So that's, like I said, about $370,000. The union, DPW union was going through a reclassification of jobs. So a couple of positions were held off to fill until HR worked their way through it. So we had some vacancy time there. And of course, with DPW, when you have someone retires, it's like a daisy chain that you have to go through where he goes, you post his position, it takes a couple of weeks to get that filled. Then that person that moved up got another couple of weeks. So there is lag money that gets involved in that too. And the associated overtime savings. Snow, we had a lot of snow last year, a lot of overtime. A lot of it was on the weekends.
But we didn't have the big prolonged hard hit storm that could really wipe you out, which then drives your snow trucks that are on the road that much more, burning up that much fuel. So we had a lot of savings in fuel also from this. We plan a bit, for regular overtime in case we have those, not just snowstorms, but the windstorms that takes down a lot of trees. The crew's been doing very well as far as ahead of winter time, as well as not getting hit with, that we don't get hurt, which one of those can knock you out for 2 months with expenses. So that's where a lot of that almost $400,000 is. Another nearly $200,000 is on utility savings. Some costs have gone up, but our building department has been very proactive in increasing the replacing rooftop units. A lot more efficiencies that are going on. You all remember approving our building multi-year phase plan, phase 1, phase 2. Some of that stuff is replacing rooftop units, air handler units, which better efficiency, less costs there. So that was some of our savings, and that kind of offset some of the increases in electrical costs due to, as everybody knows, our public benefit that we're paying for. And then there are some other items that were, like I said, our fuel is a big one because we didn't have any major storms that we were running around for months on that. That's a lot of good saving. Last year, we ended up carrying over. We came back to you and I think you approved $800,000 to go into doing some of these new improvements and get ahead of our multi-year building upgrades, which like again, more efficient equipment.
Okay, maybe that's why we didn't have the variance, because we carried over
We carried over 800,000.
800,000. Okay.
Are the maintenance numbers down because we've have a lot newer trucks?
Yes.
We go through the replacement, the
Town's been,
annual replacement. It seems like we've now come.
town's been very generous in making sure our equipment is up to date. We're down to where we buy 1 new truck a year, where in the beginning it was like 4, I think for the first 2 years that I was here, and then dropped down to 2. We've been getting good equipment, so therefore a lot of repair have been dropping down. Our snow, during our snowstorms, when I'm in there and whereas they might have been having a truck down for the whole storm 3-4 years ago. Their big thing now is all we're doing is changing blades, and even that, we're looking at other blades that were maybe a little more costly, but overall last a lot longer. So when a truck that's in the far north end of town doesn't have to run all the way back down to the yard just to replace a blade and lose 2 hours of the process. So there's efficiencies that go along with that too.
Jim, did that
Yeah, I think that handled most of it. You're not 1,657,000 of that, right? You're just, yeah. How much do you think, round numbers, John? What do you think, all your savings and stuff?
With everything, maybe $1 million.
$1,000,000. Yeah. And then the 657 is any
Solid waste and recycling is 300,000.
savings? Are we making more money on that stuff?
Solid waste was less tonnage on it. The numbers were down, recycling numbers down. Last year, we had our recycling tip fees had favorably dropping, back up again. But so we'll see.
right home if this doesn't?
So that's how much do you think?
There's contingency is another 200,000.
50,000 there.
Oh, okay.
In that portion, in solid waste and recycling.
Now we're at about $400,000. Do you know, is that anything to do with DPW?
So there's the other contingencies also.
Okay. Okay.
Because this is on that.
All right. Thanks, John. Thank you.
All right, thank
Thanks so
you.
much for coming and waiting all night.
My
I'm
pleasure.
glad we got to talk to you. That's all good
Wait, at
news.
least it was worth
All
it.
good news, actually.
I hope we entertained you a little bit.
Are you entertained? Okay.
I have a quick, what's for the So the Paycom, what is that? Is the Paycom cost an additional application that you guys are installing? What is the additional?
The additional cost is there were additional fees related to year-end processing. For fiscal 25, yes.
Sorry. You run the meeting, I'll do this.
Okay. All right, sorry. My phone,
Got a crisis over there.
which is my car, also my car key died, so I got a little panic attack there for me. Okay. All right, so nothing else on?
We have a little reserve.
I do, but I didn't carry it, so,
No, like in the phone, even if you use it to open your car.
oh, I don't know.
Have,
I don't know if I want to
An
change
Apple
that in
Pay,
the.
the information you were talking
Unless
about.
you want to give me a ride home, I'm not
At
gonna change
the
that.
top, like that.
there's a reserve to be able to open your car.
Accessing that information that.
Well, no, that's different. This was when we went through, well, there've been a number of issues with Paycom. And, there were,
What is it? Sorry.
Paycom, he had questions about Paycom. So, I mean, there've been a number of issues in terms of, needing your assistance. When we did the year-end payroll filings, there were multiple versions of them. So it's just implementation related issues that were not anticipated when they went through the process.
Okay, I just, on page 8, we have the fund balance analysis. I don't think we want to go through this very carefully because we're dealing with preliminary numbers here. So the purpose of this schedule on page 8 of the hard copy is marked is, I think, really, not really relevant at this point. Once we
Can I ask a
have
question?
final numbers, including recognition of the surplus, because I think as the board may recall, when we have a revenue surplus, in order to do anything with it, we have to change the budget to book it as revenue and then also book an expenditure to put it aside. So that will change the expenditure number and therefore the required sort of hold harmless number. So we can ignore this, but this, we need to finalize this by October, right? Yes,
So it
Mr.
wouldn't be as simple as taking the 7.559 million and adding it to the 43.
It will be once we have final numbers, but we don't have final numbers.
But I'm just noticing directionally though, if you did that, you'd have a unassigned fund balance of 51 million.
Right, and we don't want to get up to that. Yeah, we want to keep.
And that would be 13.3% of budget. It'd be a lot.
So the surplus itself, at this point, like, let's just say we ended up with this $7.5 million surplus. 11% of that is, whatever, $800,000 or something.
When do we decide where we put because we don't want to put all of it in.
No, we'll do it at the next meeting, but I'm just saying that alone will impact the expenditure number somewhat substantially and will impact what we're gonna put away. So we'll do that later. Does anyone, so we went through the internal service fund, we went through the vacancy report. Is there anything else on the town quarterly review that anybody has any questions on?
The only question I guess is you would ask, do we need to do an audit? Connie look at it. The other thought is have Joe send to
Yeah.
Connie look at it. Joe coming before us, for anything.
Yeah, so Joe, the audit committee will meet with him. Joe is typically won't come before us until like January, February with the
It
CAFR.
used to be called the CAFR.
CAFR.
Whatever it's called.
Yeah, so I did, unrelated to this, and I think it was because I was looking at the fees. I had asked Joe about what kind of audit work he did on the internal service fund many months ago. And he did remind me that he does effectively a full scope audit on the internal service fund because he had, the way his opinion is issued, he has to speak to that as though it's standalone. So he will look at that. My thought process was if the board wants, so the board has the details now on those property claims. If we want to have more audit work done on those, then I think the question is, what exactly do we want? What kind of audit work do we want done? So for example, if we wanted Connie to say, pick all the larger purchases on here and pull the pink vouchers and find out who approved them or what, like, we just, I think, have to define the scope of what we want done. And we don't have to answer that right now, but I think it's very important because I somebody threw out the concept of auditing the internal service fund, and I don't think anybody wants to audit health insurance claims. It's not what we're talking about. We're talking about this very specific thing.
Yeah.
So I think, and now we have the detail to support it. So if the board wants to provide input, she can be directed to go back as many years or do whatever type of work is appropriate.
I personally, we could talk about it later. I don't really know, but I will tell you where I'm coming from. I don't want to waste money with Joe. I wouldn't mind Connie going back 3-4 years to looking at it from both administrations to make sure, one, like, you know, that's a very good point, Chief. I'm glad you made it because I'm looking at a slow cooker and wondering what the hell is going on here. But you made a very good point that was part of a claim. Like, she could look at that and be like, what were these costs? Were they part of a claim? Check those off, like they were proper. But just to make sure nothing weird got in there other than cars.
Yeah.
And this way, I think for the taxpayers, we can at least say we did something and at least it was checked out. And find anything unusual that she finds, because I'm gonna see slow cooker, I'm gonna see coffee grinder, and all this stuff seems like an odd thing to ask for, but I don't know the background.
No, I
Whereas
think
Connie
that's,
might know about some of the claims, and she'd be able to get to the bottom of it.
so why
Another
don't,
idea whether we want to talk later on about whether cars should go through there or whether they
Yeah,
should come
that's-
to, or whether they should
No,
come
I-
to us
I
and
agree.
say.
Jim, just one thing I might add to that, though, is I might just ask her to look at, not that I think there's anything to be concerned about, but if you're gonna do an audit, you know, the idea is to make sure you've got completeness. So we may just want to ask her to get the detail, or you can do this, Tom, get the detail for the other line item in that fund, like general liability claims, and make sure nothing's been misclassified. That
Yeah.
somehow, you know, because that's supposed to be deductibles for, you know, litigation and things
Yeah.
like that. So just, you know, the other expenses, whether it be healthcare or workers' comp, I think we're pretty comfortable with those because we know we have third parties. We know how that gets charged to there. But those two line items in that kind of general liability column.
Yeah.
Just making sure that they are, you know, what's in there, are these reports that are coming out of Munis accurate in terms of the descriptions? Can we
Yeah.
rely on the descriptions? And then maybe looking at the process, you know, the approval process around them. So just to see if there's anything beyond what she came up with in the
Sure.
recent audit that might need to be added to the recommendations.
Yeah.
Mary,
For the same period, could she look at any reimbursements and where they were booked?
that's a great
So we
idea.
know where the other half is.
Because that might be a policy change. So reimbursements, classifications, sign-offs. And both pieces, so property claims and general liability claims. And personally, I don't think this is an audit that will take a lot of time. I think this is a quick one.
But if there was money that was supposed to go back to
Yes.
the general fund that really should have gone to reimburse us, if we have surplus at the end, I wouldn't just mind making it whole. I know there's more than enough money in there.
More than
We have to
enough and-
Decide what we're gonna have to do.
Yeah, and listen, the board can decide. Once the board has all the information
Yeah.
in front of everybody,
Yeah.
then the administration can make a proposal, the board can vote on it.
Understood.
Okay. Mr. Giroux?
Just want to follow up on a couple things here. So, as far as the audit goes, and what we were talking about at the beginning of the meeting are results from the audit subcommittee. You had said that the individual is no longer with us. Is he no longer employed by the town in any capacity?
After his resignation, he's still employed by the town. He tenders his resignation today. He is no longer the emergency management director. That is
So as of today, he's no longer the emergency management director.
as of last week.
Yes, as of last week, you had said that during last week, but he's no longer the chief operating officer.
He's not his chief operating officer, yes.
Just a question, because we had talked about unemployment being high. I mean, there's grounds here. So I guess, was he terminated or is this something, like, shouldn't plan employment for something that there's grounds for dismissal on?
I mean, aside from sharing that he resigned, I'm not gonna talk about just the personnel aspect of it.
That I understand. One thing just to ask about, we're gonna have her audit this, but my only concern, having done audit for many, many years, usually where there's smoke, there's fire. If there's one thing going on, there's other things going on. Is there any way to understand if there is anything else that we need to consider that we have at risk here? Is there anybody that can look at things and see, I mean, investments were moved, there was a lot of different things. Certainly, I think there should be always controls, checks and balances.
And I think
But
that
I don't know how much we had there.
voucher, there's been issues with that, and that has already been addressed.
And that's been
Purchase
looked
of
at.
this car, there were multiple people that signed the pink voucher that purchased that vehicle. This is somewhat of a legacy issue in terms of the pink voucher being used for things that they probably should have been used for, which we've changed that. Agreed that policy was not followed and we've taken controls.
I don't personally, I'm not, I agree. I think there's definitely some tightening up in sort of policies that could happen, but I don't see this instance as indicative of there must be this more pervasive issues from Mr. Becker. I think this was, they decided to change the policy about how to purchase cars. They should have come before us. It was an egregious violation of the pink voucher. But to me, it seems very, very located to the car issue.
Yeah, I completely disagree.
What do you think?
Because if you sat in this room when those questions were asked and you didn't speak up, that's lying
It is, but it's lying about a specific thing.
or self-benefit. There's motive there.
But you think that that's sort of well,
That's indicative of somebody that has
To answer your
ill
question,
intention.
where else we might look? So I think we had an audit of the pink vouchers and we had a very high degree of non-compliance. I want to say 60%. Not just this car. This is like across the board. Pink voucher. So that policy has been changed. Tom has to sign off on all of them now, so we can blame Tom if any, no, but.
Coming after you.
And everything has to go through the purchase.
Yeah, everything's and that was another thing. So the other thing, the area that I've been personally concerned about since I've been on this, since before I came on the board, somewhat related to that, because I feel like there was even fill pile stuff that had pink vouchers attached to it, okay? Is the issue of our approval processes around payments that go out of this town. And we saw it with the fill pile, we saw it with credit cards, we've seen it with other audits that have looked at contract payments that have been made. And the recurring theme has always been that, we have approvals on things. People will sign off on things, but that's sort of the extent of the control. It's not like we have somebody in accounts payable that says, okay, there's a signature, but I'm also going to make sure there's a contract attached and the pricing agrees. Like that doesn't exist here. And so, part of what we had asked Adam in the audit subcommittee was the status of this the contract management system, and I think that whole area is an area that, and I've talked to Tom about this before, when Tom was being hired, I talked to him about it. I think all the controls that we have around payment processing, from departmental review down to accounts payable, we need a better control mindset. And that's just been a struggle. It's culturally, it's not been something that has happened. I'm not saying there's been a bunch of fraud or things wrong, but from a compliance standpoint, we have had audit after audit where there've been mistakes, overpayments, underpayments. Connie's happened to trip on something and we got a reimbursement because we overpaid a vendor. So all sorts of things like that. So I would say going forward for whoever inherits the audit subcommittee and for the board.
Also, the purchasing committee has been working
Yeah.
on that as well.
Yeah, and thank you for doing that, because the purchasing subcommittee was not just about the policy, but it was about the compliance. And technically, like waivers, if purchasing policy wasn't followed for a situation, that should have been reported to us. We're supposed to get quarterly reporting on waivers. So all of those things, I think, broadly, the controls over those things can use additional attention. And that to me is the area that requires just continuous improvement. That, and I would say, and one of the aggravating factors on that is the lack of written policies and procedures, which I know Tom is tackling, so.
And bringing the risk manager in, I think will help.
Yes.
us too.
Yeah.
I think that will help mitigate these
Yeah.
type of breakdowns.
Because let's go back to the car and the vehicle policy, right? In my mind, you know, and I'm not saying anybody's doing anything wrong, but even with normal, whether it's patrol cars, whether it's command vehicles, whatever, an emergency management vehicle, whatever it might be, it seems like there are ad hoc decisions that are made of, I need this on my car, or I need that on my car. So there's the absence of a policy. And maybe those decisions have all been appropriate. Some of them I'm sure we'll question. The emergency management vehicle is a good example of that, where, you know, there are a lot of concerns and issues around that one, but just broadly, we have these ad hoc things going on in the absence of a consistent policy. Even cell phones, for goodness sake, we talk, like the town, it's like, well, it's up to a department head. Do you think everybody needs a cell phone or no one needs a cell phone? So those types of things, consistencies and policies around how we spend money, who approves things, who has, all of those things. I don't see any of those particularly tied to this car issue, but there are broad areas that I believe we still have a way to go. That's my
But there's one thing that really stood out to me, this car issue, is that David signed off on something for him. He was gonna use as the
Yeah.
emergency response
Which
manager.
is against our policies.
That violates the
That was,
policy.
that was
Oh,
an
yeah,
audit.
absolutely.
Absolutely. So can we say with confidence to the public now that nobody, whether it's a department head or anybody else, can prove their own expenses or otherwise?
That is true as far as the policy goes, so, I mean,
Now it's got, everything's got to go through purchasing, right?
things go through purchasing and I'm gonna,
But what happens when the purchasing director needs something? He needs someone.
then that would have to be approved by me.
Okay, and if you need something,
And we've had that discussion.
and if you need something,
We've had that discussion.
It's an emergency management vehicle, it should have gone to the first.
But everything,
In that particular,
everything that, I mean, there's a policy that already protects that and everything broke down. So
Yeah.
there's policy and then are people actually adhering to it? And then thirdly, is anybody ever seen that? So like, in theory, it would have been a COO or maybe another risk manager, but maybe there needs to be somebody with like a pretty big compliance function in town. Because you have all these policies that just.
What happened was.
Lori, you and Amy know more about auditing than I will ever know. I did some minor stuff for a corporation coming out of school. Nothing the way you guys did. Where I know you've run auditing whole departments and whatever. But as somebody sitting on the outside of that, I will say, this car thing was caused by one person having too many roles. No one should be CFO, COO, and then head of emergency management, where they choose their own car and can do anything they want, and there's no checks and balances. And that's the problem with putting one person in charge of too many roles, is they have too much power and there's not enough oversight on that position.
well, fortunately, that's changed now.
And, oh, by the way, fire and police have to report to that one person.
this is not an issue anymore.
No, I know, and
Just that we can go back, but.
Sally, I really appreciate hearing that the other night. So that was the one question I had, and I was so happy to hear you say that that wasn't gonna happen anymore. Because I've spoken to firemen and I've spoken to police people who, no one liked that system.
And really,
And-
the change in that was just for myself, being first selectman, that I want the police and fire chief to be able to report directly.
They already have
My own-
commissions they have to.
my own- From my own, and that's not
Yeah.
making, I'm not,
Yep,
how it was done in the past first select people,
yep.
how they chose to administer the organization, that was their purview. I'm just going from fresh start for myself and what I felt I needed in terms of reporting to be successful.
Point taken. Mr. Matola?
So, I just want to point this out, because we were getting emails about, what are you doing, Board of Finance, and there's no audits going on, there's no oversight. And I just want to point out to everyone in the public, if you go on the town website, this, and this is really to our credit. We forced the issue. We had an internal auditor who wasn't doing internal audits over the years because she was assigned to do all these other things. So just, if you go look it up. Year 2022, she did 8 internal audits, 23, 14, 24, 15, 25, so far she's done 9 already. They're all online. So she is acting as an internal auditor right now and finding these issues and dealing with them. So for the public out there, they can, and I understand what happened was totally inappropriate. We all agree about that. And, but the point is, we found out about it. A couple people had questions and we had Connie do an internal audit and we found out about it. So I want to, assure the public that this board is on top of this and we've been the catalyst to get more internal audits
Without
done.
a doubt.
So,
I think you're doing a great job.
I think we've all been locked.
Yeah, I do too.
More, not less, needs to be done.
yeah, and that's 25, already 9. We got a few more months left.
She's only one person.
Right.
I think she's doing a good job.
He's doing a very good job.
When I first met
She's
Connie,
very on
she
top
was
of it.
one of 2 internal auditors.
Yeah.
We used to have 2.
Yeah, and then it had gotten to a point, maybe 3 years ago, where she told us at one meeting she was spending 10% of her time on audits.
Yeah.
She was basically filling in for a hole in the finance department, and
Yeah.
that was totally inappropriate.
And to your point, Amy, that is there something else maybe that this person was doing that could be questionable? I think if there was, our internal audits would discover some of those things. So.
And
Maybe she
you
can
never-
sniff around a little.
You never know.
You never
I
know,
understand, I understand exactly where Amy's coming from.
I do too.
Because I have seen that too, like something happens and you pull the thread, whatever. And so I appreciate that.
On the whole suit.
I think, so Jim, you made a point, but I think the other thing is, and I'll just say it to Ms. Vitale, I mean, a lot of this is cultural, and it's tone at the top. I remember, like our former first selectman once said to me, yeah, I thought we could do this, but then Phil Pierce told me no, so I guess we can't, and that's pretty important because I think there has been a culture of like, as long as you get somebody to sign off on it, it's okay. I mean, we can't have, even our chief executive can't break policy via their own approval, and that's up to our CFO to say, no, you can't do it. Like you have to have the ability to do that and you have to have a backstop to do that. We haven't really had that. We have a structure where we've had, whatever, political appointments and things. And I'm just going back over history where, it's somehow acceptable that, as long as somebody signs off on it, it's okay. And no, that's why written policies are so important because in the absence of them, you don't have anything to hold anybody accountable to. If there was no policy and somebody signed off on it, what are you really supposed to do? Whether you're trying to do an investigation or not. So being clear on that, ethics, I believe the RTM may be looking at an updated ethics policy, having, client's manual, policies and procedures, a mechanism to report things, and our senior people, I'm sorry, you have to be able to say no, regardless of who it is, even if it's your boss. So that's a cultural thing that has to change.
I also wanted to mention, because we really haven't talked too much about it, is that Purchasing has that new software, Bonfire.
Yeah.
And that is gonna be huge. It has gotten a little bit of a slow start, but I know Adam, Prue, Tom are all working on it. And that is gonna prevent a lot of the other errors that we've seen over the years, dating all the way back to the Public Works audit, because this is gonna track the wording for the bids that go out. So you'll see what every bid is. And so if they buy a car through a bid process, you're gonna be able to pull up last year's bid And the wording's already going to be there, exactly what was on that prior year's car. And your options, what you wanted. And so it's gonna save them a lot of time. It's gonna link to the contract. And so if there's, I don't know, something that has annual escalation or insurance requirements, it's all gonna be there and be flagged when you need to get a new bond or when you need a new insurance thing. So I think that's gonna save a lot of time and prevent the errors that we've seen in the past.
Yeah. No, that was a big
I think they
one.
just have to get it all entered, right? That's the big part.
Yeah, Mr.
One
Hood.
other comment on purchasing, we've looked at in looking at the payment voucher policy, we looked at the workflow policy for purchasing, and we've really fixed that because, you know, what was happening is items would come through and they would get to me and missing documentation. So what we've done is put Adam on the front end of the process, and he is to ensure that there is appropriate documentation for everything that comes through the process. So we really kind of flipped that.
And I just to back onto what you're saying, I know everybody has been hating on Paycom because the implementation has been a little bit of a mess, but I'll tell you what, the promise of that system, we work out the kinks and it gets implemented correctly, there's a tremendous amount of control built into that in itself. I mean, we had a lot of issues, a lot of manual issues, a lot of corrections, you know, penalties paying to the IRS for misfile. I mean, we just had a lot of things because we didn't have the right, the best tools. And so, I know we have some work to do to get it to work, but that will help with workflow too, eventually. And so hopefully that we can put a lot of those issues behind us. All right, so we have a to-do list we'll talk about Connie's, and I think she could do it quickly. I think she can come back to this board within a month or so. Okay, so I'd like to move on if we can to item 6. So this is to hear, consider, and act upon the reappropriation of fiscal 25 account surplus. Can I have a motion to hear this item? Ms. Ruggiero, second, Mr. Mottola. Okay, so the backup for this item is posted online. It's beginning on page 87 of the online package, and for board members, there's a sheet that says town reappropriations for the fiscal year ended 2025. So it's quick, there are 3 reappropriations requested as part of this item. And to be clear, these are a request to carry forward unused budget dollars within these departments from fiscal 25 to fiscal 26. So these are items that we weren't able to get a PO out before year end. So they're being reappropriated, but they won't hit the 26 budget. They'll be authorized to be spent out of the 25 budget. The first item is for FairTV. It's in the amount of $16,855. There is a memo from Blue Hall Theory on page 93 of the materials that explains the transfer requests. Does anybody have any questions on that one? Seemed pretty straightforward. The next 2 items are for the Parks Department and the Marina in the amounts of $13,217 and $5,477, respectively. The backup for those items starts on page 90. Calabrese on the screen if anyone has any questions. Does anyone have any questions on those? So $35,000 in total. Is there any public comment? So if there are no questions, we can take this to a vote. All in favor of approving the reappropriation of fiscal 25 account surplus as set forth on page 7 of the posted meeting backup, please put your hand. Okay, it is unanimous. I do not see Mr. Myers on the screen, so that is
He's not on.
no more. Okay, I thought I saw him before, so that passes 8-0.
Kevin's on though.
He's traveling in a different
Vote
time
twice.
zone.
There's a gym up
Or
there.
Twice, Kevin.
So that passes unanimously 8-0. Okay.
not
So we can move on to item 7, which is to hear, consider, and act upon fund transfers for fiscal 25 operational activity. Motion to hear this item. Ms. Ruggiero, seconded by Mr. Stark. So the backup for this item is posted online. There's a couple pages out of order, but the nature and the rationale for the request is included on pages 88 and 89. And the transfer detail insofar as which accounts will be impacted is on page 94. So
88 and 89 were duplicates. If you start on page 94, it's replicated in 95 and 96.
thank you. So just to clarify for the public and maybe for the board, so this transfer request differs from the item we just voted on. So item 6 was a reappropriation of budget dollars within one department, fiscal 25 to fiscal 26. This item is a transfer between departments related to fiscal 25, where we effectively have a budget shortage in the fire department that would be covered by a budget surplus in DPW. I think we mentioned before, we commonly do these transfers at year end in one, the bulk of them, and there are a number of them. Since the year end financial information is still preliminary, Mr. Harris is going to hold off on requesting those until our October meeting. But this one was time sensitive, so we wanted to get this transfer, or wanted to vote on this transfer now. Welcome.
You guys have really hung in there.
Oh, boy.
You guys are staying longer than we are. Without your time on the board, we wouldn't have your history to understand.
How we got to where we are, so.
Appreciative. So thank you for having us here tonight. Thank you for having
That's
us
why you
here
got me
tonight.
right here.
Teach yourself. So to explain this, I'd like one of my deputies, Roger Case, to give you just a little bit of background so you know why we're here.
I'll try to be brief. I know it's been a night, but if you have questions, please. We, January of this year, OSHA had conducted a non-announced inspection of a few of our departments in the fire department. During that process, they determined that we did have some violations of some regulations, most of which we were able to correct it. Although they say serious on the page, they're fairly easy to correct as they were more a policy that needed to be updated, or some people had missed some training things due to military leave or sick leave. So we're able to rectify those and bring ourselves into compliance with all of them, but we do need help with our personal protective equipment. That's the one that we need additional funding to back up. And we were given an abatement due date of August 11th to do that. We had another meeting with OSHA where we explained to them that we are seeking additional funds to do that. They were very willing to work with us on that as long as we were making progress. So they gave us an additional 90 days from that, but that is the end of any extensions that they're willing to offer for us to do that. Right now, we're just in the serious phase of that, which we did pay a penalty for, but it was fairly minor as far as OSHA citation penalties, mostly due to basically the cooperation of all county agencies with the OSHA investigator. They were very appreciative of our openness and willingness to recognize our deficiencies and make corrections. So what you have before you, I believe in the backup, is the items that we need to become compliant with OSHA. OSHA is a law making a group, law for worker safety, and we do need to comply with the regulations.
Questions, Mr. Chair?
How did we not know that we needed this equipment?
Turnout gear in particular was covered under the NFPA, National Fire Protection Association. And OSHA had not historically used the NFPA as a reference. Now they are. So they've now incorporated NFPA standards, their OSHA languages of interpretation, and they're applying that to all fire departments that they're visiting. We had gotten ahead of that prior to with most of our turnout gear in the form of our coats and pants, because that traditionally is known as spray out gear. OSHA has applied that to the entire ensemble now, from head to toe. So your helmet, the hood that we wear to the faces and necks, that applies, the gloves that we use, the boots that we
The most
use,
expensive.
yeah, they're all now fair game. And we are out of compliance with a lot of those items.
I think it's just disappointing that you guys didn't already have this gear. Sounds like there was certainly a concern.
We
Don't give it
do
work.
have it, it's just not in date. It's all the gear has to be within 10 years date. Once it hits 10 years, it's expired, we cannot utilize it.
You couldn't tell, your material wasn't dated, so you weren't sure if it was beyond the 10
Or
years.
you
That was
couldn't
the
prove
issue.
it was. you
Yeah,
couldn't
so
prove it was.
what happens with gloves and hoods, there's no serial number, there's no, they're not manufactured that way. Helmets have a sticker on the interior and there's a serial number. It's a manufacturer. You know who made it, you know where it was made. The soft goods were never done that way
Oh, you
by.
have to do it that way.
So here you had was actually compliant, you just can't prove it's compliant?
The way OSHA interprets their citation is when they ask you for compliance for anything, whether it be an eye wash station, or fire extinguisher is another good one. I can give you an example there. Our training division has a pile of fire extinguishers that are utilized for training. We received a citation because they were not dated correctly. We don't use them for firefighting, we use them for training. So they weren't supposed to be utilized for that. So the gloves, they don't come with the serial numbers. So because we couldn't prove the date of purchase for a lot of these items, we now have to purchase items and create a dating system so we could track the life of each item.
Helmets were never enforced before. I've got a Kevlar helmet, which I've used since I was in Yonkers. Does that last forever? But because it's over 10 years old.
I gotta imagine the technology gets better.
Some of it does, yes. Helmets are kind of, they don't change.
Same as they've always been for the most part.
Just one last question, how long will it take for this to come in?
We have a vendor that we work with and they provide us the quote as far as the physical acquisition of the gear. It depends on manufacturers. Most manufacturers have gone to just-in-time type manufacturing. It's difficult to get that. We're gonna use every resource that.
So an estimate, we're talking, I mean, do these boots have to be custom made for each person's foot size?
No, not
Like
particularly.
everyone's a 10 wide.
Yeah.
That's one of my questions. It's part of the application process. Are you
Somehow I
10
missed
wide?
out my glasses.
Do we have to have these but to Amy, do we have to have this equipment like on site within the 90-day period?
Okay.
Or have it ordered or what?
Is that the same question?
You can answer.
Okay.
Yeah.
The OSHA investigator has been very good in working with us as long as we were making progress.
Okay,
So if we are showing our OSHA investigator, yes, we did get the financial clearance to purchase
And
these
we have-
items.
here's our purchase
Here's the
order.
purchase
Okay.
order. The vendor is,
no pink slips.
the vendor is working to fill that order. I believe that we will get
I
latitude.
think we gotta vote yes. It's pretty straightforward now.
It's definitely
They don't have the
straightforward.
gloves, all the gloves are large.
You just have to pick a size for them to give a quote.
Oh, okay.
All
Oh,
right.
so the 10 wide is not legit?
It's just a
No.
placeholder.
Because everyone gets sized.
Just very-
Oh, you do get size?
Yes.
And we
If I imagine the gear fitting correctly is pretty.
I'm sure it would be a good safety protocol. if you had the wrong
Micromanaging
size
here.
Ms. Leclerc?
Put a 12 and a 10, that's a toy.
Was anything in your current budget for any of these items? And how long do these things that we're buying last?
We have a replacement cycle in our budget. We do it as non-recurring capital for turnout gear replacement. But that. The coat and the pants are really the most expensive pieces of that. And when I say turnout gear, each firefighter is issued 2 sets of turnout gear because once one set becomes wet, it's unusable until it's longer drive and ready for service again. So we can't have, our crews went to a fire today. If they didn't have another set of turnout gear to put back in service, half of our department would be unable to respond to call.
State injury from Steve.
So we utilize 2 sets per.
Any other, Mr. Pro?
Yeah, so if I'm hearing correctly, we didn't have a dating system on some of these items, so therefore just have to get it only that. Does this supply every firefighter in Fairfield with 2 new sets of gear?
It's going to get us in compliance, to get us to where we can fund these things through our normal budgetary process.
Okay, so
But the answer to your question is yes, they will have what they need, that they will be outfitted correctly.
well, I guess I'll ask the question a different way. Is there any gear that doesn't get replaced because it does have a dating system or something?
If I understand you correctly, you're asking, would we replace everything?
Well, I would think that if you couldn't prove that the stuff you had was less than 10 years old, you've got to replace it.
Correct.
So to me, that would mean that I
Some
suspect.
stuff has serial numbers though.
Yes.
These items.
Helmets have serial numbers, coats have serial numbers,
Okay.
pants have serial.
So you know how old they
But
are.
the
We know
soft goods-
exactly how old they are, who has them, when they were issued.
But the soft goods didn't have that type of serial number or dating system, so that's, everyone's getting new soft goods.
Yes.
Okay. And what dating system are you gonna put in place for these soft goods going forward so that if OSHA comes back 7 years from now, you can say, okay,
The manufacturer now is gonna provide us with that information, and also we'll use it in our record management system. We'll track it at the born on date if you will.
but if gear is used, and I imagine gloves get worn, broken in, like, is the serial number gonna?
We'll know by
survive?
manufacturer. You'll see the manufacturer.
And we'll know by
By
issue
the
date
person.
for each individual. So I'm gonna issue you this gloves and this hood.
Okay.
When they wear out, you come back and we issue you another set. So now I renew in my software the date that I gave it to you. Yeah, in reality, gloves, they don't last anywhere near 10 years.
Yeah.
We go through them very quickly.
The new software also allows us to put an end date so that we could say in 10 years, hey, you owe me
Say like
2% of
the
gloves.
Yeah,
So we'll have a better understanding.
makes sense.
Right.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions on this item?
Bigger picture question. I remember when you were here a few months ago, we were talking about the National Fire Brigade Standard, right? And I just checked in on it again. It doesn't sound like it's been finalized yet. So is what OSHA is doing sort of anticipatory compliance with what they expect the standard to?
Interesting theory of it, but the 156 standard has more to do with staffing and more to do with response times than.
Oh, right. That's right. It was in.
And training, not so much personal protective equipment.
Got it. Do you have a sense that when the standard is actually promulgated, that on the equipment side, you will already have what you, or should we be thinking about like some wave of spending on new equipment next year or something?
There is a potential for that, because if the 156 standard is passed in its entirety as it exists right now, there'll be additional staffing requirements, which means additional personal protective equipment.
Any other questions on this? Okay, public comment, any public comment? I see none. Okay. We can vote all in favor of approving the transfer request set forth within the posted materials. Say aye. Okay, it is unanimous 8-0. One thing on this item, I realized as I was doing this, so we just approved a transfer, but since it's after year end and we don't have a PO or an encumbrance, I think we also have to vote on a reappropriation of this before you, because you're it's past year end. So, yeah, so I'm gonna make a motion to amend the agenda to add the following item, to hear, consider, and act upon the reappropriation of $118,972 in account 010041010 in Department 56140, which is fire, from fiscal 25 to fiscal 26. Second, all right, we need at least 2/3 to amend the agenda.
Yeah.
Okay, it's unanimous 8-0. Okay, so now can we vote on that item? So all in favor of approving a reappropriation of 118,972 in Department 56140 fire from fiscal 25 to fiscal 26, raise your hand. Okay, it is unanimous 8-0. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
All right.
Really appreciate it.
Thank you, good luck.
So make sure that just for Joe is gonna need that for the financials and.
Again.
That's important.
All right, thanks, you guys.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, so we can quickly move on to item 8, which is to hear an update on investment income. Again, this doesn't have to do with quarter, it has to do with next year. But we thought it would be worthwhile to get an update since that was a large estimate in the budget. So this is in your materials and the title of the page is investment income analysis. Tom, do you want to tell us where we stand here?
Sure, I mean, relative to the budget, obviously we're in pretty good shape. What has changed since we did the budget is, you know, the average and the investment balance is a lot higher than what the average balance is in the budget. And this balance will go down. You know, a couple things we're doing. It's one is we're finalizing our cash projections. And then we want to tie that to our capital plan, which we're doing next week, at least the first year of the spending in the plan. And then integrate that with the investment plan. But based on the values as of the beginning of September, the investments were about 30 million higher than the average balance in the budget. So if you would have priced those investments out, the gross income, investment income will be about 11.6 million. And what we've done there is to look at the value at the beginning of September, look at investments that mature within the fiscal year and assume that they are reinvested at 3.75%. And other investments that mature after the end of the fiscal year, calculated based on the coupon. The other thing I would add, I guess, is in terms of maturities during the year, we've got roughly $12 million that's going to mature during the current fiscal year.
Okay.
Just one other point I guess I would make, in terms of maturities in the current fiscal year, they have been reinvested at rates higher than 3.75, except for one recent maturity, which was reinvested at, I think, 3.6%. The others were around 3.8, 3.9%.
And I'm sorry, what periods of time are we talking about? I know you said it's not.
This is for the
Fiscal 26.
And is this the projection for the full year? Or
for the full year.
This would be for the full year based on current portfolio balance.
I mean, this may be a little optimistic.
Yeah, right, because the balance is gonna,
It's gonna, but it's
gonna come down, the balance is gonna come down as we go through the year. It's just based on current values.
So far, we're running with some budget.
Right.
That's good.
Okay. Any questions on this? Okay. All right, might be a little out of order here, but item 9 was to hear, consider, and act on any communications. Anything? No? Okay. So item 10 is to hear, consider, and act on the draft minutes of March 25th, April 2nd, and June 3rd, 2025. I have a motion to hear this item,
Can I
Mr.
just-
Matola.
I wasn't at the June, so.
Okay, so we'll vote separately. All right, so you motion to hear second? Mr. Curley, okay. So we can go through these one by one. So on the March 25th minutes, are there any comments on these minutes? Okay. April 2nd, the budget vote. Any comments on these minutes? I have one, I think, on page the Department 1320, which is like on the page 4 of these minutes. It's the fourth bullet point. And this says, active employee benefits. Craig Curley made a motion to increase line 5200. I seconded the motion, which carried 5-4-0, but then it says Walsh, Ruggiero, Leclerc, Myers in favor, and I believe that should say opposed. Yeah. Page 4, right? Yeah.
Yes.
Any other comments on these minutes?
Are we voting for the March, April minutes?
Yeah, we can vote on March and April together. So first I'll propose to amend the minutes, as I just noted. So on that one line item for 1320 active employee benefits, line 5200, to increase that by 25,828. I'm going to propose to amend the minutes to strike in favor at the end of the sentence and replace that with opposed. Second for that amendment, Mr. Matola. So we'll vote on the amendment. All in favor of the amendment? Okay. Amy and Jim, are you okay with that amendment? It's just to change
Yes.
in favor to oppose. Okay, so that the amendment passes 8-0. Any other comments on these minutes? It was the. All right, so let's vote on these 2 minutes. So all in favor of approving the draft minutes of March 25th, 2025, as provided to us, and April 2nd, 2025 as amended, please raise your hands. Okay, those minutes are approved 8-0. So June 3rd. Mr. Matola and Ms. Leclerc were absent. Any comments on these minutes?
Excuse me, can I just, I'm sorry, this is Prue. Can I say something about the April 2nd minutes?
Yeah.
I believe there's another, I didn't hear you say this, so I hopefully, I'm not interrupting for no reason. But the very last, let's see, it's page 1, 2, on the third page, the last bullet before expenses. I forgot to put the second and then the vote in there.
So the BOE budget?
So it says Lori Charlton made a motion to approve, yes, in the amount of, and then there's no second. And Shane Penley seconded
Shane
the
Penley
motion.
seconded, and then that passed unanimously, right?
Yes.
Okay, so I'll make a motion to make those changes. So on that page, amending the minutes to say Shane Penley seconded, and that passed unanimously 9-0. Okay, so we just voted on these. So what do we do? Unvote on them? Whatever. All right, so a further amendment is, all in favor of further amending the April 2nd minutes as just noted? All in favor? Okay, that passes 8-0, and then let's approve the two amendments on the April 2nd minutes. To approve those minutes as amended with the two amendments, all in favor? Oh, no. Do we have to second again? I'll make the motion. John seconds, all in favor? Aye. Everyone? Okay, 8-0. Okay, so those, thanks, Drew. So those minutes are approved. Are there any comments on the minutes from June 3rd?
Yes. Where I made the motion.
You wanted that for posterity.
I want to frame this.
Around with me for a long time.
Frame it, because it'll never happen.
That's a good one. I
It's
like
gonna be on his wall.
it.
Wall of fame. Any comments on these minutes? Okay, seeing none, all in favor of approving the draft minutes of June 3rd, 2025, please raise your hand. Any opposed, abstain? Okay, those pass 6-0-2 with Mr. Bullet and Ms. Leclerc abstaining. Okay, item 11, motion to adjourn. Mr. Penley, seconded by Mr. Curley.
No one had moved, let's fucking meet.
Is that your phone back there?
Huh? Oh, yes, I think someone